everybody, and welcome back to Hans Niemann Against the World. Today we have a rapid match. Sorry we started a little bit late, but today there's going to be 6 games of rapid, which are each worth 2 points. Hans currently has a 6-point lead going into this match, so this definitely could go in Anish's favor, but at the moment, Hans has got a really great lead right now. All he needs to do is draw his way to victory, basically. Take a page from Anish's book. Welcome in to everybody who is watching over on Twitch and also on YouTube. I may be a little bit lower rated than your previous hosts, but I hope that I can tell you about these games and make it entertaining for you guys. So welcome in. This is game number 1, but they have gotten quite their way into it. I might give you guys a very quick recap of what has happened so far, because we are just going halfway through a game. So let me show you what has happened so far. We have had e4, and Anish Giri, unsurprisingly, has played a Sicilian knight off with the pawn on a6 over here, pawn on d6 and knight on f6. And Hans has played this bishop d3 move here. And then after this, we have this knight coming to g4, attacking the bishop that's on e3. Bishop came out to g5, and then Anish kicked the bishop all the way back to the c1 square. Then we have a trade on c6. The bishop has come back to e2, targeting that g4 knight. The knight goes back to f6, castles, bishop g7. The other bishop comes out again, and then black castles too. Queen is coming up, and they create a little bit of a target on the h6 square. A little more developing moves. We've had a trade on b3. These bishops get traded off. Another pair of bishops get traded off. And now Hans makes this really interesting break in the center with his move e5. Pushing here, obviously you can't take because your knight is going to be captured on d7. So this is a really interesting way to change the pawn structure in the position. Now Hans decides he wants to reroute his knight maybe up to the d4 square, actually to the g3 square he goes to, and Anish decides to try and infiltrate with the rook on the a file. So here we go. Oh, where is my camera? Okay, this is, oh no. It seems there is, yeah, okay. It seems there are a few technical difficulties. Hopefully these will not happen throughout the match, but yes. Okay, so this is what we have so far, and now we are in the current position, and Anish has played rook to b8, and we do have a little bit of pressure on this b3 pawn here as black, because there is a current threat to capture this pawn, and Hans could not take back because the queen would hang on this d2 square. And then here, Hans plays rook to f3. This is defending this b3 pawn, so they're not taking here. Yes, these games are going to be very fast. Thankfully, it is not as fast as blitz chess, so I will at least be able to keep up with, hopefully, what the moves they are playing. Anish offers the queen trade, bringing that queen out to a5, but Hans dodges it, moves his queen over to the e2 square. Yes, they play it very, very quickly. They are strong players, both of them, so they're playing very fast. Anish, again, wants to offer this queen trade, so he's basically saying, let's get the queens off the board. Let's make it a more simple endgame with just the rooks and the knights. Yes, this is very, very fast chess happening for rapid. That's what I'm thinking. Like, they're making all of these moves within like 15 seconds or something like this. So this is very interesting. Now, I don't think that Hans wants this queen trade here. It really probably just helps out Anish. Okay, now Hans plays a really good move, avoiding the queen trade, but also bringing up this rook here. And now we have a lot of defense of this pawn on b3, and the rooks are working together on the third rank. So this is very nice. Yes, I'm going to draw lots of arrows. They might be bad arrows, they might be good arrows, but I will do my best to show you what might happen. I might accidentally draw out some illegal moves, but I'll do my best. Okay, Anish is taking a little bit of a think now. Now, Hans has been playing very, very fast. He still has 15 minutes on the clock, and Anish is down to 13 minutes. I'm not exactly sure what time they started with, but it seems like they've been using basically no time at all. They've been playing very, very quickly. Yes, black is applying a lot of the pressure. This is one thing I would say in this position, but the good thing is Hans is handling it extremely well. It's probably quite easy to sort of collapse in this position. It does look like black has the more active pieces with the queen and the rook aiming down on this b file. And also this rook on a2 is surprisingly a good weapon here. It's putting a lot of pressure, whereas Hans's pieces are a lot of them are playing a defensive role. But there's nothing wrong with that because there's no real way that black can push for a big attack here. And maybe at some point, black will try and push too hard. But here for now, Hans can just play some simple moves where he maneuvers his pieces. Maybe this pawn on c6 could be a target at some point. This is something that you maybe want to be looking at the same way that black is trying to target the c2 pawn. Okay, Anish brings this knight out. This knight comes to the c5 square, and we're attacking this rook. So this rook has to move somewhere. It has to move somewhere, and it will give Anish the option to forcefully trade the queens if he does want to trade the queens. Very important to move this rook to c3, because after the queens are traded off, we still have a defense of the c2 pawn. Everything is held down, and then we still have pressure on the c file. Oh, yes, I don't think it's I'm not sure if it's the Australian internet. I think it is okay, but the camera might be going in and out. Let's hope we can fix that. Should be fine, I hope. Maybe I'll see if there's anything I can do to fix that. But as long as you guys can hear me, I think this is okay. Yeah, as long as you guys can hear me, that's the main thing. Let's see. Okay. Yes, that's good. Okay. Well, I guess there will be maybe a camera for half the time and no camera for the other half of the time. But all right. All right. To fix his sitting posture. This is also how I sit when I'm playing classical chess. And I don't notice it. You know, sometimes when I've streamed my games, I don't realize until afterwards that I'm sitting like this the whole time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is actually how I'm sitting. I don't realize until it's too late. And then I look at the stream after. But you know what? It's a comfortable way to play chess. Anish, on the other hand, is sitting up very, very straight while he's playing. All right. Yes, let's see. Yeah, I think it might just be some issue with what we're using to transmit the video. We just had to organize everything rather quickly, but hopefully it will sort itself out. But as long as you guys can hear me throughout the whole thing, I think that's fine. We still got the cameras from Anish and Anish and Hans, which is the main thing here. Okay, so Anish is taking a long think at this point. I guess he's deciding, do I want to trade off these queens? Do I want to trade off these queens? Or do I want to keep them on the board? Now, there is the chance that he could just play something else, maybe put this knight over to the e4 square, offer a trade over here and say, maybe I want you to take me instead, and then I can get my rook out here on the b file, on the b5 square, defending this knight over here. So he's actually using his time now, which could be a good sign because both of them haven't had a long think this entire game. It seems like so far the moves have been coming in super, super quickly, but this is the first time that one of them is pausing and taking a think. So here, okay, Anish plays a move. He does not trade the queens. He instead plays queen to c3. So he's trying to keep the pressure on. It looks like neither side is wanting to play for a draw here. That's what I can tell. Neither side wants to trade queens. Oh my gosh, Hans is playing fast. Okay, so what did we have? A few moves came in at once. So queen b4 was played, which the engine decides to give a mistake. And now white has the advantage, but it's only a plus 0.41 advantage, so Stockfish is a little bit crazy. The queen moves to f2, rook b5, f5, beautiful pawn break over here, just trying to break up the pawns around the king. And then Anish makes a big mistake with knight takes e5. Hans sacrifices the knight, and then the rook captures on f5. So we have a brilliant sacrifice on the board. This is super exciting. So it was a huge mistake for Anish to actually take. You should have just left those pawns there and not done anything about it, basically. Either way to take, Hans was going to be sacrificing the knight and winning. We have double brilliant, chat. 2 brilliant moves in a row. Look at this. So here, now Anish is up 2 points of material, but there's some big threats. And what you'll notice is that when Hans takes forward with this rook, it clears the way for this rook on c3 to move over to the g3 square and give a check to the king. So this is what happens right away. The king can go to the f8 square, and then what you can actually do is push forward with e6. Knight can't capture because the rook is going to be hanging, and he plays this instantly. The knight can't capture because this queen is going to capture this rook that's on a7, if you see this. And obviously the pawn can't capture because it's pinned. This is a brilliant game. Oh my gosh. Okay, look at this. Yeah, and he's playing these moves so fast. Okay, Anish is now using up some time. I think he's realized there is some big trouble right now. Maybe he should have taken a little bit more time when working out whether to capture an f5. Clearly didn't see this. Okay, we have the rook coming back to b7 to try and defend. Everything he will try and do is to defend here. Hans still has to play accurately to convert the win here, but with his beautiful tactics he's been playing with, you know, under 10 seconds of calculating or however long it's taken, he has been playing very well, and I think this is great. Okay, the queen moves up to e3. We have now threats on this h6 pawn. The threats to come in and capture, for example, if I'm not even sure what you would play here as black. I was trying to find a move for black to play, but it all seems terrible. You know what the engine is recommending? The engine is recommending you play queen to c3, which is never a good sign. If the engine is recommending that you hang your queen in one move, you might be in a little bit of trouble. Okay, so yes, the queen is on e3, and there is big threats. Yes, this is crazy. Okay. Yeah, this is almost resignable already. Wow, Hans coming up big for the first game in the rapid section of the tournament. This is super exciting for the first game here with the white pieces. Yes, this queen is coming into h6, and there are big problems. What are you even going to play here? I'm not sure. Maybe he will just resign. He's still got a good poker face, I have to say. Anish doesn't look troubled by the position somehow. I'm very surprised. I think I would have my head in my hands at this point, just being like, oh my gosh, what happened in this past 5 moves that went from a perfectly equal endgame down to me being in a plus 10 situation. So let's see. Yes, avoiding the queen exchange. Sometimes I know a lot of players also have this problem where you want to avoid the queen trade because you want to win, and then you avoid the queen trade to the extent that you end up in a terrible position. And I think this is what has happened here in the first game. So Anish going to use up a lot of his time here. Maybe just see, okay, we do have a move on the board there. Though, he plays knight takes e6. And Hans immediately captures. The queen can just take on e6. You obviously can't take back because of the pin here. So yes, after queen takes e6, it's looking like it's all over. There's going to be a checkmate soon. Let's see what happens here. Now, can we not just go on? Okay. Queen d6 is better. Okay, queen d6 is faster. There are lots of ways to win here. Okay, and then Anish resigns already. Wow, this is crazy. I was trying to see how this game would go on. There's some crazy checkmates here. You sacrifice another rook, and then after king here, queen g6 check, and after king f8, it's queen g8 checkmate. So you could sacrifice 2 rooks and a knight in one game, but that's not what happens. Instead, Anish resigns there. What a beautiful game. A very convincing one to start off today. So now Hans will have an 8-point lead. Perfect play. Yeah, that was an almost perfect game, or maybe a completely perfect game. I didn't see one mistake there. And in rapid, you usually will see more mistakes compared to classical, but that was absolutely insane. Now, do they have a break in between the games? Should we look over at what happened here? Oops, there goes the camera. Okay. I mean, yeah. Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are now starting with round 2. Hopefully, we've fixed up the camera issues now. This might be a little bit better, but let's see. All right. Sorry, I'll get my mic on. Okay. Sorry. Hello. Sorry, everybody. All right. So here we are, round 2. Now, Hans has the black pieces. So we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. So we get Avoid Lopez. And now we have knight f6. So Berlin defense, very famous for a lot of draws happening from this line. So maybe Hans is just looking for a draw with black. This could be a really good strategy in this match. Go for the win with white and then play for the draw with black. Could be guaranteed a win. So we have this knight coming back to d7. Anish plays h3 and then castles, and this knight comes out to c3 and Hans plays a5. Sometimes you play a5 just to gain a little bit of space, and also maybe because you want to keep this bishop on this diagonal here from a7 to f2, because sometimes this knight wants to come out here trying to target the bishop, and you want to be able to retreat it back to this a7 square. But now Hans offers the trade of the bishop. Anish offers the trades of the bishop, bringing this bishop to e3, and Hans plays queen to e7. So now there is a possibility to trade. Instead, Anish plays a4, gaining a little bit of space here. So these pawns are sort of mirrored now with these two a pawns pushed forward. Let's see what happens here. Will they trade? Okay, both sides seem to have this recurring theme where they're like, no, you trade. I don't want to trade, you trade. So he instead plays this developing move, bringing the rook out to e1. And Anish plays knight to e2. So this could be a signal that this knight wants to come over to g3 and come up to this f5 square. So Hans moves his knight out of the way so that his bishop is now controlling this f5 square. So if this knight comes in here, then you have the opportunity to capture it. So Anish won't really be able to get that chance to get a really strong knight on the f5 square, targeting the queen and squares around the king. Okay, now we see b6 from Hans, pushing the pawn forward. Maybe this bishop will go along this diagonal, but I really don't think so. I think it wants to stay here, keeping an eye on this jump to f5. Okay, we have b3, pushing forward. Let's see what is played here. So both sides playing very, very quickly. Yet again, let's see who is going to be the first to think. It seems like Hans is using a little bit more time compared to the last game, but to be fair, last game was lightning speed. Okay, now he makes a reroute of his own, bringing this knight out to g6, and now has a threat to jump into the f4 square. So both of these knights have gone a long way, taken a long way from home. Okay, now Anish plays this move, knight to f5. There was the opportunity to capture here, but instead Hans decides to avoid the trade and just retreat his queen back to the f8 square, where he can keep an eye on g7. Okay, let's see. Yeah, queen f8, a very nice move, super GM move, we say, all the way back here. Now, who will be the one to trade off the bishops? That's what I'm wondering. It seems like both sides don't really want to trade. Now, of course, if white takes here, Hans is going to recapture with the queen, not with the pawn getting the triple stack, because this would not be a nice way to have the pawns. But I think that Hans is reluctant to take over here, wanting to keep his bishop on this diagonal as long as possible. All right. So now Anish is taking his first think of the match. He probably needs to come in and get a win because there's only 5 games left of the entire thing, and Anish needs to make back 8 points. So he needs to win basically 4 out of 5 of these games if he wants to win this or have a chance to win this match. Okay, f6 by Hans. An interesting move here. So Anish has, just to recap, brought his knight back from f3 to the d2 square. Maybe it's heading up to c4. Maybe he wants to bring a knight up to this strong outpost on c4, but f6 is played, and now Anish plays queen to f3, sort of replacing the knight that was on f3, moving it back here and putting the queen over there instead. Now Hans finally moves the bishops. They've been staring at each other for a long time. He finally decides to move it, brings it out to the b4 square instead. Okay, let's see. 4 wins and 1 draw, or 5 wins if Anish wants to make it back. So this would have to be the greatest comeback of all time, I would think. It seems like Hans at the moment, especially with how he played the first game, has got it in the bag for this one. And yeah, also Hans is not lower on time anymore, which is nice. Anish also using a little bit of his time as well. It does seem like we are only having a few minutes break in between the rounds. We weren't exactly sure how long the breaks would be when we went on the first one, so I think they're only taking a few minutes in between the rounds, so it'll be nice and action-packed. So this is very exciting. You don't understand why he moved the bishop to b5. In the opening, bishop to b5, targeting this, is that what you meant? Okay, g4, a very bold move by Giri. So both sides have now pushed pawns in front of the king. And yeah, this is very brave. I'm not sure in chat whether we like it or whether we think this is too crazy to push this pawn in front of the king. Now, Hans decides that he wants to put his queen on the f7 square. So this queen is now coming up. What is Anish planning to do? He moves his king out of the way. So maybe there is a sign that he wants to attack down this g-file. So the king is now moving out of the way so this rook can go over to g1 square and then he can push on g5. So this could be the plan to completely open up the position and attack down the king side. So this is the way that you play if you want to win the game. So Anish is definitely playing for a win. Let's see. Okay, knight to f8. The knight is no longer heading forward. It is now deciding to go back. And maybe the idea now is that Hans wants a knight on the e6 square. This is now starting to look like a really strong square to place the knight. Anish does play this move, rook to g1. Let's see what happens. Will he prepare the g5 push with h4? Maybe he can start pushing h4, g5, keep pushing forward. Yeah, Anish is putting the pressure on. Here comes queen to g3. Everything is now stacked up on this file. So if this file is ever becoming open, Hans might be in a little bit of trouble. So he has to make sure that he plays some very, very accurate moves here to defend. King h8, a great move by Hans, moving out of the way of any potential attacks on the g file. Yeah, this is a really nice move. So now what will we see? Will we see h4? Is he going to go all in on the attack, or will he decide to slow down a little bit? I think at this point, if you're Anish, you probably just have to go, okay, I'm not entirely sure whether this attack is going to be winning, but I have to play it now. I've brought all of my pieces over here. My king is on h1. Let's just go for it. Let's push the pawns. Let's see what will happen. Hello, everyone who is watching in Twitch chat and YouTube chat. Hello, hello to all of the people that are coming in and supporting Hans today. F4 could be possible. That might be a move. Let's see. Okay, knight to f3. So maybe he's wanting to prepare this even more. Maybe he's not fully convinced. He wants another piece controlling this g5 square, another piece ready to attack on the king. What will Hans play now? It's almost like he has to keep playing quite defensive and very careful. But this is exactly right down Hans's alley. He knows how to play defensive chess, and he knows exactly when to strike and when to attack. Okay, but bishop to f8. He wants to defend this g7 pawn with an extra piece, but now the computer gives white a small advantage. After this, rook can go to the g2 square, and maybe we're going to see a double up on the g file, or it'll actually be a triple up. This will be like Alyakin's gun going all the way down here with the queen and the two rooks down the g file. So Anish can basically, this is a really interesting position because what Anish is doing is basically abandoning this entire side of the board and saying, I'm going full all in on the attack on the king side. Now he plays h4. Okay, he decides not to go for this move, but this is still, okay, Engine gives it a mistake, but it's still a good attack. It's still a good way to play. Engine much prefer this idea to just bring absolutely every single piece over to the king side. So h4 is now being played, and here comes this idea to keep pushing forward on the g file. Yeah, it starts to look a little scary. All right, let's see what Hans does here. So maybe you need to start kicking the knight with something like g6, trying to make this knight go somewhere else, but then the knight can jump into the h6 square and start targeting this queen that's on f7, and you have to make some awkward maneuvers to get out of it. So he probably needs to take some time here to calculate. This is really an important position because on the next move, white is threatening to push g4 and completely open up the king. So Hans needs to calculate and work out what he wants to do. He plays knight to f4. He jumps the knight in, but this is a mistake. After takes, okay, Anish capitalizes. He captures the pawn. It is just a free pawn according to the engine. Here he plays g6. I think that that Hans was just too worried about what could potentially happen if everything became open. He wants to keep this bishop here defending everything, wanted to trade off some of the pieces and make it a little bit more defendable. Let's see, instead g6 first was a better way to play, but it was very hard to allow this. All right, so g6 is now on the board. Anish has to go knight to h6 if he wants to keep the advantage, attacking the queen. This queen can go to the g7 square or it can go to the e7 square, but you need to be very careful to keep an eye on this pawn. This on f6, of course. Okay, we do have knight h6. Anish playing a great game so far with a +1 advantage, but it's just one pawn. Let's see what happens. Queen g7 or queen e7, both moves are fine. I mean, queen d7 would be maybe too crazy, I would think. We might get in a lot of trouble if we sacrifice everything over here. You think you would just take here. Now, the problem might be not about trading off the pieces here, but if you capture on a6, the problem might be that you have immediate threats when the queen is coming into h6 and to push over here. Like if you take over here, it's probably still fine, but when the queen is coming in, it feels a little bit scary. But maybe this is what might happen. Maybe he'll trade off. But let's see. Okay, queen g7 is on the board. Collapse under this pressure. Yeah, this is a lot of pressure that Anish is putting on. It's really going to test Hans this game. There is a lot of pressure here. Okay, now great move from Anish, striking with g5. g5. Oh, that looks absolutely terrifying. Now this is basically forcing Hans to open up the position around his king. There is not a whole lot that you can do. If you capture here, the knight can take or the pawn can take. Both moves are fine. And it's crazy here that the knight can actually just capture. And it looks like you can just take this for free, but then there is knight f7 threats. Things go horribly wrong for black if you capture there. So very interesting position. But here Hans decides to play bishop to d6, attacking the queen. Now Anish decides to cash in and take another pawn. We have takes. Rook f8 is now played, and we have a trade. But now Anish is just up 2 pawns. He's up 2 pawns now, but Hans does have an attack down on this knight on f3, a little bit of attack on the f2 pawn, and he does have the 2 bishops. So this could still be a game where he can make some interesting threats, but Anish should win this game. He should win this game if he plays accurately. Okay, king to g2. The king is now coming back to the center of the board, and it is defending this knight that's on f3. And now this rook is staring at the knight, but doesn't have a whole lot to do. Okay, what will Hans play? He plays bishop to e6, activating his bishop that was on e6. But now look at all these pawns over on this side. These look really scary for Hans. Okay, let's see. I mean, if Hans can defend this, this will be huge. This will be huge, but it looks terrifying. Okay, Anish brings in the knight, attacking the pawn, attacking the bishop. Hans just has to play a defensive move, bishop back to d7. Anish now calmly moves back to this e2 square. Now, what will be the plan for black? It's a little bit difficult to see. Maybe you need to start pushing some of your pawns over here so you don't get completely attacked by all of the pawns on the queen side. Let's see, why are they playing bullet? They're playing very fast, but in rapid, your time disappears very, very quickly. So that's why they're playing so quickly. They need to just play fast moves and then take some time at the key moments. Okay, so here Hans brings up his bishop to f4. Maybe he's hoping just for this trade, a simple trade where he can now start bringing in this rook and attacking down the f-file. All right, and this knight here is very annoying for black here, controlling all of these squares around the king, and it can never be kicked out. Okay, now we have takes, and the king comes up to g3. Wow, what a king. It's attacking the rook now. The king is taking control, attacking the rook and defending the pawn on h4. What a useful way to play with the king. Okay. So now Hans thinks, he doubles up, and then we have knight to f5. There is a problem now with this king on g3. What a move. Knight to f5. If you take here, then the king is just going to take on f4, and Hans will definitely lose this game down 4 points of material. Okay, so what a crazy game. What a crazy game. King g3 actually set a really nice trap there with knight to f5. It makes a lot of sense. It looks like it makes a lot of sense to just double up the rooks and keep it simple, but you probably just need to move the rook back, like put the rook back on f8 if you want to keep the pieces in the game. But I'm sure that this probably is not fun at all either. Great game by Anish. Okay, so we had a brilliant move in this game. I think they're only taking a few minutes in between the rounds. So let's just see how long they will take. Maybe we will check through some of the key moments in this game and also in the first one. So let's have a look. Okay, so this game was very, very equal. It was a maneuvering game and rather straightforward until Anish started to create this big attack down the G file. And Anish just brought all of his pieces over here. And unfortunately, Hans just crumbled under the pressure. He played a few defensive moves and then moved this knight up to f4, hoping maybe that he could play with the bishop pair in compensation for the lost pawn, or maybe just too worried about the big attack that was about to happen down here on the G file, and decides to play knight f4, trade off the pieces. And then there became big problems after this move g5, which absolutely was a big problem for Hans. If you capture here, the king is going to be completely open and h file is open. There's so many threats down here. It just looks absolutely terrifying. And then we had a trade where Hans lost an extra pawn. Hans decided to try and play with 2 rooks on the f file, but then Anish plays the brilliant move knight f5 and wins the game. So that was a really awesome game by Anish. But two back-to-back super exciting games. This now gives Anish a little bit of hope to come back in this tournament and maybe even play for a win. But Hans had a very convincing win in the first game. So let's see what he does again with the white pieces. Yeah, all Hans needs to do basically is win one more game. So let's hope that this next game with the white pieces will be all that Hans needs to win overall. I'm not entirely sure whether they will play the entirety of the 6 games, even if Hans has won the tournament already, or if they will play them out, or if they'll just say, okay, this is over now. I'm not entirely sure yet. I guess we'll see and we'll find out. All right, so yes, we have just a few minutes before the next game, and then after the 3rd game, there is going to be a longer break. So for now, we're just going to take a few minutes in between. Was knight d4 earlier? Yeah, feel free to ask some questions in chat about any moves that you're curious about. Knight d4, on which move were you thinking? I guess this was a move for Hans. Are you meaning when this knight was on the board? Just let me know at which move you were thinking about knight d4. It doesn't look like it's possible in many of these positions because there is a lot of control of this d4 square. Okay. Are you thinking at the point where he played knight f4 instead, or one move before knight f5? Okay. Oh yeah, okay. Knight f5. That was a long time ago. Okay. Knight d4. Do you mean? I don't think we can go knight d4. Or am I crazy? There was no knight that could go to the d4 square. Maybe before knight f3. Okay, we'll take a look. We will take a look. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to think about when this is. Yeah, because I don't think there was really a possibility for the knight to go to d4. Yeah, I don't think black was actually able to play knight to d4 at any point here. Yeah, because the knight can only go to d4 from this square, and here it's always going to be protected. So yeah, I'm not sure about this. Or here. Oh, you're thinking, okay, here instead of putting the knight over here, or okay. Let's see. So after here, going knight d4. Oh, the idea is that if the bishop takes, we're taking on d2. Oh, this is an interesting idea. Maybe this was a good idea. Because then if takes, we take over here and something like this. Yeah, that was maybe a really good way to play it. Okay. Yeah, knight d4 was very interesting. I guess you don't have to capture, but yeah, it looks like a really interesting way to play. All right, we have a new game. We have a new game. We're into round 3. Let's go. Okay, yes, nice find from GM Twitch chat. We like it. Yeah, knight d4, very creative move. Maybe if Hans had played that, maybe there was better chance for there to be a draw in this game. Looks like they've started to play some moves. They're just coming through on my end now. We have a Slav defense. Hans with the white pieces, he's switching it up. In the first game, he played e4. Now he's switching to the other side, and he is playing d4. So we have d4, d5, c4, so pushing these pawns in the center. And then we have a trade in the center. Knight comes to c3, knight f6, and the bishop goes to f4. Knight c6, e3. So it's almost like we have a Jabava London looking like setup, but not quite. Queen comes out to b3 and now has some pressure on the b7 and the d5 pawns. Okay, this will be the first time in the tournament where Hans plays d4. Oh, it's always nice to surprise your opponent, especially in rapid, when they're thinking, okay, definitely there is going to be e4 played, and then you play d4, and it just kind of throws them for a loop. Okay, we have knight a5 targeting the queen, a check played by Hans, bishop comes back to d7 from this g4 square, back to d7, targeting the queen, and then we have bishop e5. Here, Hans is offering the trade, asking if Anish wants to get rid of these light square bishops on the board. So for now, Anish will just have to play a developing move. If you trade here, obviously you're going to get in a lot of trouble with knight to b5. And things start to get very scary because there's threats of revealed attacks on the king and double checks and checkmate, all these crazy things. So the queen would have to go here, losing the knight. So that's not going to happen, of course. So Anish cannot trade here. He instead has to play simple developing moves. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. So I'm not sure why I was showing you guys this, but I thought it was kind of funny to look at. But instead, we have knight to c6. The knight has come back from a5. I think this is a wise decision by Anish. Having this queen, having to defend this knight over here, feels like there is always the opportunity for some tactics where you deflect the queen from defending. So bringing the knight back to c6 is good. Put something in the way of the bishop, and it makes it a little bit simpler. There's not going to be scary tactics. Why no cam? The camera is lagging. I think there is some internet issues. I'm not sure what is happening, but yeah. But yeah, I'm here for half the time and not here for the other half. Okay. Let's see. All right. So we have knight to f3, a6 kicking the bishop. It goes back to e2, e6 now. The bishop now can get out. Castles, bishop e7. The rook goes to c1, and then we have castles by black. So both sides of castle. Yeah, I think it is. I can lower my camera quality again and see if that makes it hold even more. I can try that. It will be like maybe the worst camera quality you've ever seen, but maybe it is better. Okay, I can try. But no, I don't think. All right, anyway, let's not get distracted from the game. We have a3. Now, Anish pushes forward with b5. Queen goes all the way back to d1 now. Queen b6 by Anish. And then we have a4 by Hans. All right, so yeah, so far, there hasn't been anything really crazy happen. There was maybe chances for tactics earlier in the game, but now it's looking a bit more like it's going to be a slower grind. Here, taking would not be so good. It would not really be nice to open yourself up to getting attacked by this knight. It can also head up to the c5 square from a4. So you really don't want to allow this trade and allow this knight to come in over here. This is really dangerous. So instead, you might want to close up everything on the queen side by playing b4, attacking the knight. And from here, it has to awkwardly go back to this b1 square. And then you can play a5 and have these two pawns connected together on this side of the board. So this is nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm not broadcasting this one. I think now that I've lowered the camera quality even lower, it seems to be a little bit better. I mean, it looks like I'm, in a microwave, but it's better than nothing. Okay, yeah, they're playing blitz so that they can finish the games early and enjoy a sunny day at the beach. Exactly. Oh, he does take. Okay, this is great for Hans. This is a great opportunity for Hans. And I think definitely what is going to happen is knight captures, and then this knight has a beautiful square up here of c5. So the queen goes back to b7, going back here, and let's see what happens next. Now, look at this knight. It's very beautiful up on the square. He plays knight to e1. What a move. This knight going back from f3 to e1, and now it's going to go to d3, and then he can get this knight up to c5. So he doesn't immediately cash out and put a knight on c5. What he thinks instead is like, how can I keep a knight on c5 forever? I can bring this knight from f3 to e1 to d3, put it up on c5, and then I will never ever have Anish kicking out my knight over here. So now Anish brings his own knight into the party. He plays knight e4, trying to get a strong knight in the center. I think that Hans can just continue with his plan, rerouting up to d3, and that's what he does. Brings the knight up to d3. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, there's really no way that you can stop this knight getting up here. Although, yeah, this knight on e4 does control the c5 square. So let's see what Hans does. I don't think he'll be in any rush to really just plant it straight there, but it's always going to be an opportunity in the future that he can put a knight on this square, especially now that this b file is open and everything is becoming more open up here. This looks great. Okay. So now we have a mistake by Giri. And the idea is that you can kick this knight away with f3, and Hans plays it, knight f6, and the knight goes into the c5 square. What a beautiful knight this will be. What a beautiful knight this will be. Okay. So let's see if Hans plays it. Maybe he's deciding which knight he wants in this square. I'm trying to watch the camera and see what happens. Okay, he's thinking. He's like shaking his head. He's about to make a move, and he does it. He plays knight d to c5. Beautiful move, and it's a +4 advantage. It's crazy to think in this position that there's no material advantage. There's just one knight that is doing the work for everybody, and it's making a 4.5 advantage for Hans. And this could be the match decider. This could be the match decider. Okay, so the knight is on c5. It's got pressure on the queen, pressure on the bishop. Maybe Anish will capture, but it doesn't really solve the problems, because the great idea with this maneuver from the knight coming from f3 all the way up to c5 is that now if black is capturing, you just bring in another knight. And then this is super nice. Okay, so let's see what happens. Anish is now taking his time. He does seem to take his time when he realizes the position is not so great. Let's see if he finds any resources that we can't see yet, some idea to bring himself back into the game. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be taking this pawn on b2. This is very, very dangerous. Taking the pawn on b2 is pretty much always the way to get your queen trapped and just lose the game whenever you're playing. So just never take this over here. And of course, also in this situation, the queen works to defend things over here. But yeah, if you play queen to b2, then a rook can just come to the b file, and then the queen is going to have to sacrifice itself for one of the rooks. If you go queen c3, there's knight a4, and then after queen a5, knight b6. There are big, big problems. So yes, this creates big problems here. But anyway, Anish is not going to take the pawn. Instead, he plays this move, queen to b6, moving the queen forward here. And then Hans just takes this pawn that's on a6. He just grabs the pawn, rook to d8, and then rook a3. What a move. What a move here, rook to a3. Okay. Yeah, this is just seeming really great. All right, what is black going to do now? What do you do in this position? You need to find a way to just sort of get back here, but what will you do as black? Anish using a little bit of his time, but he still has 13 minutes on the clock. So you wonder why they didn't use a little bit more earlier in the game before the position was so bad. Okay, he plays an interesting idea. He brings his knight out to a5, maybe trying to occupy this square in the future, also trying to cut off the rook from defending this bishop over here. So there's now the possibility for the rook to capture on a6, and then after the knight takes, the queen could take. So there are some opportunities there. What will Hans play though? Maybe you can just double up, bring your rook over to c1, from c1 to a1. And then there is so much pressure down the a file. Lots and lots of problems for Anish. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, the bishop definitely can't go to this square. Not for now. But maybe it was good at some point. Okay, he does play this move, rook to a1. The rooks are now lining up against this knight. And what will Anish play now? Because now this knight is under attack. It is full threat that he takes. Oh, and Anish just resigns. He resigns. So this is okay. I guess now we'll find out. I think there's meant to be a break after this round, but I guess we will also find out now whether it's going to just be over now or whether they'll play the remainder of the matches. But big congratulations to Hans. I think that, I don't know if I'm congratulating early, but I think that means he wins the entire thing. So big congratulations to Hans. Go Hans. But yes, okay, we might be taking a little break now and see you guys soon, I think. All right, we are playing the rest of the games, even though Hans has officially won overall. He has become the winner of this match, but we will still play out the remainder of the 3 games. Let's see what kind of chess that Hans can play in this remainder 3 rounds. I think it's been super exciting to see all of these exciting games. We again have the same opening as we got in the previous black game for Hans with this Berlin defense, and they're playing almost the exact same opening, except here Hans moves his bishop back to d6, which he did not do in the previous game. I believe instead the queen went to the e7 square, defending over here. So bishop d6 happened instead. And then we have knight c3, castles, knight to d2. They are wasting absolutely no time. They're playing at lightning speed. And then we have the knight going back to e2. So it looks like we're going to have a very similar game. Knight goes to f8 here. We might see the same idea where the knight comes up to the g6 and f4 squares. And Anish will maybe go for the same plan with knight g3 to f5. So we're getting almost the identical game as we had before, except a little bit different. In the previous game, these bishops oppose each other with the black bishop on c5 and the white bishop on e3. Hans has played a little bit different here. Now a5 and a4, so again, similar to the previous game, a5 and a4 played. Let's see. Yes, this is round number 4 out of 6 today. This is Hans versus Anish. They played a one-on-one match. They played some blitz, they played some classical, and now for the final leg of this tournament, they are playing a rapid match of 6 games. And Hans has officially won already, but there are still 3 games to go. So yeah, they're playing like it's blitz. I suppose they've just played the same opening 100 times before, so they're like, okay, there's no point even pretending to think here. They know exactly what they're going to play. They've played this game already in the match, so they might as well not waste any time with it and play some quick moves. There are some slight differences. As I mentioned, this bishop's positioning on d6. Let's see if this is better, whether this is going to be an improvement from the previous game. It is very nice that Hans is still going into this line, even though this is the game that he lost. He lost against Anish in a very similar position. So it's good that he's not afraid to go back into this, try and correct his mistakes, try and play a little bit better. Okay, the bishop comes out to b4. This happened in the previous game also, but there was a problem later where the bishop came back to the f8 square. So let's see what happens here. Will something different happen? Yes, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you all those tuning in on YouTube and on Twitch, watching and supporting Hans. It's really great to see all of you guys supporting in the chat. Okay, g4. And again, Anish is going for the aggressive play with pushing the kingside pawns. Let's see how Hans handles it this time. Now, the top engine move right now is knight to f4, but considering knight to f4 in the previous game, giving up the pawn here was a big mistake for Hans. That might make him a little bit less inclined to play this move. And this is what happens. Oh, that's not what happened. So knight to f4 is the top engine move, but he played this in the previous round, and it was a big mistake. So sometimes you think, okay, I played it before and it was bad, so maybe it's bad here too, so you feel less inclined to play it. Maybe he's more hesitant. Maybe he goes for a different plan. But it's possible he plays it anyway. Let's see what happens here. He's played a move. He does play knight to f4, so he doesn't let the mistake of the last game influence him in any way. Knight goes up to f4. So here we have this, and Anish grabs the pawn, happily taking an extra pawn, and now black has the 2 bishops. But in this position, it's actually not so good for white to take that pawn on f4. So in this position, Hans actually has a small advantage. And now here he just captures that strong knight that was on f5, and he's going to play with this bishop against this knight here. And this bishop is really, really strong. It has a lot of squares it can go to. The position is maybe going to be quite open, especially on this side of the board. We have takes with the e-pawn, and let's see what happens here. It is an option to just trade straight down into an endgame. We could just see this. Bishop takes and queen takes. That could be a wise decision from Hans from the match point perspective. Just play some simple chess for the rest of the games. Make sure he ends on a good score and keep it simple. But he could also go and say, no, I want to make a statement. I want to play the best chess I possibly can, and instead try and play something else. So rook to e2 here is quite strong, bringing in the rook to infiltrate. And white doesn't really have the time to sort of counter this rook in the center because we are attacking the knight. Okay, he does play the move. He plays rook to e2. Perfect chess from Hans here. Best move was to bring in the rook. And now you have to play a little bit of a defensive move as white, bringing one of the rooks over here, maybe from the A file or the F file to defend the knight, or maybe you move this knight forward, you put it on the E4 square, see if you can just give up the C2 pawn, but it feels a little bit too dangerous, giving up the C2 pawn, weakening the D3 pawn. B2 is under attack. Instead, Anish just plays a logical move and defends. Okay. So this was the wrong rook. Okay, I was thinking this was the right rook. See, you never know which rook is the right rook, because I was thinking, all right, we want to keep this rook defending over here, and this rook isn't doing much on A1, so I would want to bring in this one. But it's the wrong rook. Okay, so this is already a nice position for Hans, but now he needs to keep the attack up. Let's see. Maybe you try and move the queen out of the way somewhere, and then try and bring this other rook into the E file. This could be possible. You do need to keep an eye on the C7 pawn. Where will you go? It's possible to play a move like Queen D5, which looks crazy, hanging this pawn down here. Oh, but of course the queen was defending this. Never mind. That's why I'm not playing this. Okay, Bishop D6 is played, but this is apparently a miss. Okay, Bishop D6. Apparently a miss. What was the best move to play? Instead, Hans could have played the move queen to h4, bringing in the queen and just making a huge attack over on the king side. So that was a missed move by Hans, but still bishop d6, and it's still looking good. All right, but now Anish finds a nice move here with queen to f3, attacking the rook and forcing it to move out of this really strong position on e2. So all of a sudden, Anish has a little bit of the initiative back, targeting the rook, making it move somewhere. You could try and play something like queen e7. This is possible. Maybe you want to try and keep this attacking position by bringing in your queen. You could also think about playing queen to e5 soon, targeting the h2 pawn. This is possible. Let's see what Hans plays here. Oh, he does play queen to e7. Okay, great. That's great. I think this is the best way to keep the attack going, so this is nice. Yeah, we won't talk about the Australian breakdancing. I will just pretend that didn't come out of Australia, of course. Okay. So what will Anish play here? He's using a little bit of his time. He can play for the win. It's not going to affect the overall match result, but it may affect the final score, make it look a little bit better for him if there isn't such a big difference between the scores. Losing by 8 points is not something that any of us would want to do, including Anish. So maybe he's just going to try his best to get at least some wins before the match is over. So what are some possible moves here for white? It's really tricky to actually work out where you want to put your pieces. At some point, you maybe want to play knight to e4. But the problem is that this pawn on c2 and b2, they're both going to come under attack. So maybe you need to start pushing your pawns over on this side and then eventually prepare to bring this knight out to the e4 square and put it in the center of the board, because I think this would be a really strong square as long as this rook isn't coming in and taking here. Okay, might get adopted. I don't know if well, okay, there's no adoption possible, but winning by 10 points, I mean, I would call that almost an adoption. Like if you win 10 points in a one-on-one match, I mean, that's pretty close. It's like a half adoption. All right, a big thank you. They're finally, this is one move where they're taking the time thinking. Anish is not playing like it's blitz here. Hans, I feel like, has been playing this whole rapid section like it's a blitz game. It's been exciting to watch, but it's funny how little time they've been using in most of them. Most of the games they're finishing and they have over 10 minutes each, both of them on the clock. So yeah, let's see what Anish comes up with by taking some more of his time. Maybe we could go through and see. Chat here, what would you play if you were playing with the white pieces? Not thinking, yeah, you can't think until the match is over. What would you play here if you were playing with white? I was saying that I want to have this plan to play knight to e4, but I can't exactly work out how am I going to coordinate my pieces to get there, because this rook is tied down to d1. We can't move it away. So how are we going to get this knight here without losing these pawns? And c3 and b3 feels kind of crazy. So what would we be thinking? Yeah, this is what I'm thinking too. You want to find a way to protect this pawn, but it's not so easy. There's also engine is suggesting to just play king to g2. This is an option, but it's kind of hard to see what exactly it is doing at this point. And now it's saying after king g2 and rook to e8 by black, this knight can just come out to e4, and you basically give up this pawn. You say, you can have the pawn back. I just want to get my knight on a strong square. I want to get my pieces back into positions where they're going to be attacking. And then you take this rook over to the e file and line it up with the queen. So this position looks a lot better for white than the position he had before. He plays c3 instead. This is a really nice move. So let's see what happens after this. So c3 was one of the top moves. Maybe you're trying to just get a little more space in the center. Maybe you have the idea of playing knight e4 very soon and giving up the b pawn instead of the c pawn, and you want to keep these two pawns in the center. So it might just be we're preparing this. We're saying take this pawn, not this pawn. I want my pawns in the center. Okay, now we have queen to e5, threatening mate in one. We will have to see something like queen to g3 to defend. This will need to happen. Okay, Anish plays queen to g2, which essentially does the same thing. This does essentially the same thing, just defending that mate threat that's on the h2 square from this queen and bishop working together. So now what will Hans do? There are many ways to play this. You can play something like queen to f4, targeting the knight, putting pressure on f2, and just basically adding an extra attacker over here. But now white can play this move. You can cash in, grab this pawn over here, but it will be pretty much equal amount of material, and this knight versus the bishop. Okay, let's see what happens here for black. This queen on g2 does look a little bit sad. I would be a little bit sad to have this queen back here in defending. So that's maybe a little bit of a problem in Anish's position. But apart from that, it seems to be completely okay now. He's played a few really good moves to actually gain this back. It was a lot better for black a few moves ago, but now it's not so bad. Okay, Hans triples up. Two rooks and a queen working together on this file. Whoops, I might have just ruin the board a little. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the rooks and the queen all together on the e file. These look very intimidating. This is where black has a very active position. Somehow the engine still thinks that white is better, but I think that I love how black's pieces are working together. They are all very strong. The bishop and the queen are working together. The rooks and the queen also look down this e file together. The only problem in this position is obviously that Anish has an extra pawn. So this is what is setting them apart in this position. And also, I guess, a big part of this would be that white does have an idea to bring this knight into the center. And then that makes white's position look a lot better. Okay. So, yes, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, everybody. Now we have knight to c4. The knight does not go to e4, it goes to c4. We're targeting the queen and the bishop here. Nice move by Anish. The queen can go to the f4 square, it can go to f6. Basically, any square that is not hanging the queen will be good, of course. Just move it somewhere, maybe keep it along the battery. But c5 is apparently bad. I thought that c5 looked fine. I thought as long as we're not hanging the queen, we should be fine. But c5, there is a problem after b3 apparently. But this is not something that is obvious. It feels like there is not a huge difference between if this queen was on f4 and c5. Maybe on f4 it still creates this threat down the down at the h2 pawn, whereas on c5 it's not targeting so much. And now white has this threat to play d4, attacking the queen, pushing forward in the center. And yeah, these c3 and d4 pawns work together. Now, of course, you'd have to do something to defend your knight first. You can't play oh, b3 does defend the knight. Okay, that's what b3 does. Okay, so b3 defends the knight, and then you can push d4. So b3 is played, d4 is now a threat. Okay, it's sometimes hard to work out what super GMs are thinking as they're playing their moves, but I'm trying to sort of decode all of the craziness. I'm like, what does b3 do? Okay, it defends the knight and it prepares this. So that's what I'm thinking we might see soon. Feels a little bit scary now that Anish has this threat to push the pawn down and create a big pawn of chains in the middle of the board. Chain of pawns, not pawn of chains. Okay. So what will Hans play here? It's still looking possible that things could be completely okay. He plays b6. Now these pawns are well defended. They work together. This is great. This is a great structure now. But yes, I would be a little bit scared by this push happening in the future. I mean, I guess we will be fine right now. We can maybe just play something like queen d5. And if this capture happens, our pawn structure does improve. We no longer have double pawns. We instead have some more control over the center. We do have d4 and queen d5. This is what happens. So I think Anish will trade. He will trade. And now Hans will at least have improved the structure on the queen side. But maybe, I mean, the way that the rest of these games have gone, Anish has been avoiding queen trades like the plague. He does not want to trade his queens. He wants to keep the queen on. So let's see if he does actually trade this off. I mean, maybe you could even just say something like this. Okay, now the pawn structure is back to how it was, where we have some double pawns on the d file instead of the c file. And you're probably not winning this with white, but you're also definitely not losing it, I would say, because these pawns look better. So let's see what happens. He does trade off the queens. So we might get exactly this line where the knight captures on d6 and Hans gets some double pawns on the d file. Now, it is also an option you do not have to take. You could play something like knight e3 as well. And if you're wanting to play for a win, maybe you're interested in keeping the pieces on the board. But there are some tactics of knight e3. Bishop h2, king takes h2, and then the rook can capture on e3. And here now Hans has won himself a pawn. So this is a crazy tactic that could possibly happen if knight to e3 is instead played, trying to target this pawn. Some sneaky tricks there. So instead, Anish plays the safe option. This is definitely the safe way to play. Just trade off the pawns. And yeah, these d pawns are absolutely not going anywhere. The only thing they can really do is control the center and stop this big clump of pawns advancing and doing too much damage. But really, Hans is the one who is going to be defending this endgame. Of course, he is down a pawn. One thing I would like that I do like for black is just the way these rooks are staring down the e file. It's always nice to have active rooks. So this is why it is completely okay. All right, we now have b4. So what Anish is probably hoping for, but is not expecting, is that if we do get a trade like this, there is a great potential for white to create a pass pawn over on the queen side, which would give you the opportunity to play for something to win. So yes, b4 is played. Let's see what happens now. And otherwise, you can just trade off the pawns here. Say if something like h6 is played, you could just trade off the pawns, and then Hans is just left with this clump of pawns on the d file and one pawn over on a5. So, all right, we have rook e4 attacking the g4 pawn. We have rook e4 here. Take some time to hydrate. Okay. The games are just so intense. There's not a lot of time to take a break. Otherwise, I feel like I missed something. They're playing so fast. It's testing my ability to keep up with things and talk this much. Okay, so the rook is coming up to g4. Anish can just push this rook and say, all right, here, move again, rook. I will play f3, connect the pawns together. And then what is Hans going to do? Maybe you just have to move the rook all the way back, and that would be a little sad. All right, instead we have takes and takes. So Anish has done what he wants to do with the pawn structure, making Hans's pawns very sad looking over on this side, maybe easier to target. If Anish can ever get in a rook over on this side, like if you can get this rook over to the b file, infiltrate over here, you know, without it completely losing to these two rooks here, if there was ever the possibility to come in and start targeting these pawns, it could be very, very dangerous for Hans. But Hans does have a lot of time. He has 13 minutes on the clock compared to Anish's 7. But I think Anish is really taking his time here because he wants to play this endgame to the best of his ability, knows that upper pawn, yes, the engine will always say it's a draw, but in rapid games, anything can happen. I think that at their level, usually they know exactly how to draw these kinds of games, but I've seen it, you know, 2,400 games. I watched 2,500 ELO. They mess up rook endgames, and I do it a lot, but I'm a lot lower rated than them, so I can't judge it on that. And Anish does this. He infiltrates with the rook on the b file. This is exactly what I was thinking, that you can infiltrate over here. But then we have we have the rook taking on g4 with check. So Hans grabs this pawn. Anish just wants to go in and attack over here, but Hans will take the pawn while he has the time. Of course, there's back rank threats. We have king h1, and now Hans needs to push one of these pawns, otherwise he's getting checkmated. So h5 is played, of course. We are not falling for any back rank mates. Let's see. So after this, there will be 2 games left. So we are on game number 3 out of game 6. So there are 3 games left to go. And yes, Hans has got a big lead so far. All right. Okay, oh, we've had a few moves come through. Rook b5. And then Anish picks up 2 pawns over on this side. Hans also takes the pawn on c3. d6 is under attack. And now we have Anish is yet again up a pawn. Rook goes to a3, targeting the a4 pawn. And you can take on d6. But then Anish will be taking on a4 with 2 rooks aiming at the d4 pawn. So rook a3, targeting the a4 pawn, stopping it in its tracks. Let's see what happens. You can also play a5. Maybe we'll see a5. It does keep on this passed pawn on the outside for longer, and Anish does play that. It looks like there is a better opportunity to win this way. We have rook to a4 now, targeting the d4 pawn. And let's see what is played here. But yeah, the pawns over here, they don't look great. But this a pawn here, I guess Anish is just going to guard it with his life for as long as he can, because that is really his only winning chance. If you have this passed pawn here, it's your only chance to win. He plays h3, attacking this rook. Let's see what is played here. And if you capture here, there is immediate problems in the endgame due to this a pawn, because it's so far advanced, it can just start pushing down. So if you make this trade here thinking, okay, now this is just equal material, it should be simple, the rook can just go over to the a file and start pushing here, and then you're in big, big trouble as black. So yeah, don't take over here. Don't take this pawn. Instead, rook f4 is played, so Hans plays the right move, does not take. I mean, it seems like an easy draw, but it really isn't. There's so many things. Like, for example, you can't just take this pawn. There's a lot you need to think about. And you need to be very, very, very careful about this a pawn. Okay, so Anish brings in his king. And now we have h4, pushing forward, just limiting the space around here, controlling the g3 square, and just gaining more space. So here we go. I mean, I expect we will see a draw, but it is possible anything can happen. f3, now pushing the pawn forward. Now Hans will probably start bringing in the king for himself at some point. Maybe the king is going to come out to f8, try and bring this king into the game. But yes, it does look like soon it's going to become more and more simple. Let's see. I mean, if you really want the pawn, you can take it. It just might lose you the game. All right, Hans has almost double Anish's time and plays king to h7. Going out the other way. The king could go this way or this way. He decides to come out this way. Now Anish probably will keep the journey of this king coming out, maybe up even to e3, but you probably don't want to leave this h3 pawn for dead. King f2 is played, and then rook to a3, just controlling this third rank and also applying pressure on the f3 pawn. Now, Anish plays king to e2, but we have a mistake from Hans with f6, and suddenly white is winning. It is just crazy how a small move, just a small mistake in the position, can lead to white having an advantage. So we have king to e2, and f6 is played, and now Anish can play the brilliant, or the great move, sorry, great move, a6. And okay, if takes here, you have the beautiful move, king to e3, and this rook is absolutely trapped. And that was the point of playing rook a3. You defend this. Wow, what a move. Okay, let's see. A6 is played. So you cannot capture, because then this rook will be trapped. If you play king e3 and the rook is trapped, it's all over for black. So Anish is actually looking like he might get a win here. Still holdable for Hans if he plays very, very carefully from this point onwards. He needs to use absolutely all his time and think about this position. But now Anish has some serious winning chances with this pawn only 2 squares away from promoting. And also Anish threatening to capture this d6 pawn at any point, maybe not wanting to leave this f5 pawn, but it starts to become really scary. Okay, so let's see. What will Hans play here? He plays g5. He pushes the pawn. Now here you play en passant. You can play this move with check. You can play this move with check, and it removes this pawn from being attacked, so you can threaten to take on d6 now. You can threaten to take here without losing the pawn on f5. So this is an option. All right, so g5 on the board. Let's see what is played. Hans promoted to... Wait, where? I don't see the queen. Yeah, en passant with check is the only move to keep in an advantage. But since en passant is forced, it's got to happen. Anish knows you have to play en passant at any possibility. And he does it. He plays en passant. This is the only move to keep the advantage. Hans captures back. And here d6 is about to fall, is going to be lost. You still cannot be capturing this one yet. So, okay. Will he take here now? After he takes here, now this pawn is defended. Now this pawn is defended. So yeah, what this also is done with this move g5 and the trade, now the rook is not going to be trapped anymore with the move king to e3 because now the rook has the f5 square. But yes, Anish might just take this pawn on d6, defending this a pawn, and try and make a queen over on this side. Let's see. All right. I don't think Giri can catch up, but they're still playing out the last 3 games of the match. So Hans, if my calculations are correct, has an 8-point lead, but Anish can only get a maximum of 6 points in the remaining rounds. So even if he wins all of them, he will still be losing by 2 points, which is better than losing by 8 points, but he will not be able to win the match altogether. So Hans has already won. All right, we have still no move on the board. Let's see. Yes, taking actually does lead to a draw. I thought that you could take here, but it leads to a draw after rook f5 is now possible to be played. That was the important thing about the position, is that now the rook has the f5 square and can slide over to the a file, go to a5 if it needs to. Okay, so you need to play a7, and that's tricky. That's tricky. You again sacrifice the pawn, and then if takes, rook g1 check, king f7, king e3. This is looking quite crazy. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to lead to a win, but let's see what happens on the board. Anish is up the pawn for now, so let's see what he plays. 4 minutes on the clock though. It's getting low on time. Okay. Only 4 minutes left to go. Hopefully he uses his time well. I think it would be very sad to lose this game as well. He does play a7. That's the best move. All right, now this pawn is 1 square away from promoting, but Hans can just capture. He can take here. It wasn't like the situation before where the rook was getting trapped on f4, but he plays a mistake. He plays king f7 instead. He maybe is worried about this. He was worried about taking for some reason, but now Anish has a big advantage, but only with one move. He needs to find the only move, which is rook to b1. And that is not an easy move to find at all. Okay, so what happens here if we just take... Oh, then we go king e3 after this. Oh, this is very, very tricky. And then king e6. Rook b5. Yeah, this is... Oh, yes, this is absolutely crazy. Okay, it's the same idea with trapping the rook. But this time, it's the same idea with trapping the rook, but this time, black cannot counterattack the white rook with king to e6 because this rook can now slide into the b5 square and defend the rook. Yeah, this is really crazy. If Anish finds this is going to be super awesome. I think he's definitely capable of finding it, but it's just an absolutely beautiful way to play. Just bringing in this rook to defend and not allowing the king to come in and counterattack this trapped rook with the move king to e6. So let's see if Anish finds this move. Okay. He will not find that. Yeah, it's a very crazy move. I mean, it makes sense once we look at it with the engine, but it is just crazy. It's something he could find. I absolutely trust Anish to find it, but I also totally understand if it's not because it's just a crazy move. Is the only winning move. Any other move is just a complete draw. And 2 minutes on the clock. Easy to find out. I mean, it's easy when you can see it on Stockfish. Definitely not easy when you're the one playing the game because it seems like such a nothing move out of something out of nowhere. But let's see what happens. All right. He's running his time very low. It's making me a little nervous. 1.5 minutes on the clock. No worries. Did Hans? I don't think he misused his time. I think Hans has just been playing very quickly throughout the entire match, at least in the rapid section. He has been playing every game very quickly. He hasn't gone below 10 minutes or something in most of the games, whereas Anish has played a little bit slower. Okay. Oh, but he doesn't find it, and that is, yeah, I was saying is absolutely crazy move. So he doesn't find it, and now Hans will probably get the draw. Anish decides just to make a queen. Well, why not? For the sake of it, rook takes. King to e3 is played, but now king e6 does defend. This is the difference with not having your rook able to come in and defend over here. Now the king can come up and attack this rook on e6. We have rook d6, sacrificing the rook, a desperado move. Before the rook is going to be given away, he takes one pawn, the king takes, and now Anish is up 2 pawns in the endgame, but sorry, 1 pawn in the endgame, but it is going to be a draw. Okay, now the king walks down to f5, attacking the pawn on f6. Hans still needs to show some technique here. We have captures. So 2 pawns versus 1 now. And now the kings start to approach the pawns. Anish decides to put, whoa. Okay. Whoa, what happened here? Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. No, Hans. Okay. Honestly, I assumed they weren't going to make any mistakes. I assume they're such strong players. I'm like, where would this? Okay, and what? Oh, that's crazy. Oh, this is so difficult though. Oh my gosh. Okay. You know what Hans had to play? He had to play king c6. You can't approach the pawn. You instead play king c6. See, this is why endgames are just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, f4 is now on the board, and Anish is ready to push a pawn down the f file, threatening to go down and make a queen here. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, king c6 is something you'd read in an endgame study book and you just stare at it for a while like, what? Honestly, okay, so the idea is king c6, and now with f4, rook h2, f5, h3. Yeah, it's really, honestly, for me, it is very difficult to tell the difference between this, and this is why I need to study my endgames, because honestly, this is very difficult to see the difference between these moves. The king is better placed on the c6 square as opposed to the d5 square for some reason, but I honestly don't know exactly why. Maybe there's down the line some opposition or something like that, some tempo. But it is really tricky to work this out. Okay, we have the king going into e6. He's trying to hide behind the pawn. He wants to play king f7 after f5. The king hides behind here, but rook f4 now happens. The rook is coming down to f4, and now after something like rook g3 check, the king can just capture over here. 2 pawns versus 0. Yeah, that is crazy. That's a very unique endgame. I mean, the fact that bringing the king towards the center and placing an attack on the pawn is the wrong move, and you instead need to move yourself away from it. You need to see like 10, 20 moves ahead just to see why that is the correct move. And it's probably something that, you know, humans, maybe a select few humans would be able to play that, but definitely none of us in chat would have found the right move, I don't think. All right, so we have king takes h4. Anish is going to get a win. This is a little bit of a redemption win. This might be his first, no, it's his second win in the rapid. So it will bring the scores up a little bit more level. It will be a 6-point lead for Hans instead of an 8-point lead. So they're actually now equal in the rapid, 4 versus 4, and we still have 2 games to go. So will Anish be able to catch things up? Will he be able to win the last 2 games and make this a more tight score? Let's find out. I think we will have another short break before the next round. And Okay, we are back for the final two rounds. We now have Hans with the white pieces again, and he is playing d4 again. So somebody said that for the rest of the match he had not been playing d4, but now he has played d4 two white games in a row. And we have knight f6 from Anish. In the previous game he played d5, so he's switching it up here. Now we have c4, e6, and then after knight c3, we could get a Nimzo-Indian defense, but instead Hans plays knight to f3, the anti-Nimzo, they call this, because you're not going to be hit by this bishop b4 move, pinning the knight to the queen. Okay, now Anish plays d5, pushing in the center. g3 played by Hans, so now he's going for a Catalan setup with the bishop coming to g2 and a kingside castle. Now we have check over here by the bishop. The bishop blocks here, and now this bishop goes back to e7. This move is basically to say by black is saying that this bishop over here on d2 is going to be a little bit misplaced on the d2 square. So by blocking with the bishop, you then retreat back to e7, and then this bishop later, it did want to go to f4 or something like that. It is now stuck on this d2 square. So then we have bishop g2 by white and castles by both sides, and then Anish plays a solid setup by putting all of his pawns in this little triangle here on c6, queen to c2, the knights come out to d7, rook to d1 is played, and then Anish takes some space with a5. The bishop now moves to f4, and yes, as was said earlier, this bishop had to move again from when it was on d2 to f4, and then a4 is played. Knight comes to e5. Sorry, they are playing these moves very quickly and I'm trying to keep up. The knight comes to e5 and goes into the center, and then we have h6 by Anish preparing a move like g5, which looks a little bit crazy, but you can push forward and attack this bishop and play a little bit aggressive with the kingside pawns. And then we have knight to c3. a3 is played also by Anish, and he's pushing this pawn all the way down. And if you play something like b3 and not taking, this pawn is forever controlling this b2 square, and it's pushed very far down the board. So it's maybe something you just want to take it before, while you still have the opportunity. But Hans does push forward with b3, and now g5 is played. g5 pushing forward on the king side, attacking the bishop. Let's see what happens here. Now we have a trade on the d7 square. Knight takes, and now the bishop goes back again to d2. So the bishop has moved from c1, d2, f4, and then back to d2. And now Anish plays super, super aggressive with f5. Wow, this feels super crazy, but it seems to be working. Now we have e3 and rook f7, rook a to b1. I am almost caught up. h5. They've played all of these moves ridiculously fast, and now the knight goes back to the e2 square. So now we are all caught up with the current position, and yeah, this position looks absolutely crazy. All of the pawns are on the board, so we haven't had any of the pawns traded off, so this is a very close position. But on the king side, Anish has played what looks absolutely crazy, h5, g5, and f5, pushing all of the pawns in front of the king. And he might try a similar approach to what he played with the white pieces a few games back, where he was playing an attack on the g file, but he moves his rook over to h7, and yeah, might be preparing just to push all of these pawns forward and try and launch an attack over on the king side. Yeah, almost too fast. It feels like it is almost too fast. Yes, yes, yes. I am back here. Hello, hi, welcome in. Yes, I've done some commentary here before. I mean, of course, maybe things would be a little bit easier if I had a GM partner, but I'm doing the best I can to try and work out what's going on here. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for giving me patience. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a huge problem for Hans as long as he deals with this accordingly. But all right, he moves his bishop back to e1, and now Anish has a small advantage. So it should be fine. There shouldn't be too many problems, but once these pawns start to push forward with this move h4 and g4, even something like f4 at some point, it starts to get very, very terrifying for white when you're playing like this. Maybe you just want to close things up and play f4 yourself, and then hope that Anish can't really break in using all of his pieces. But yeah, Anish will really have to work to coordinate an attack. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, bishop e1 is an interesting move. I wonder exactly why he decided on this move, bishop to e1. Maybe to clear the e-file. What will this bishop do here? I'm not sure exactly. All right, the knight is now coming out to this f6 square. So Anish is working to move his pieces over to the king side of the board where his attack is going to happen. And this is something he's done really, really well throughout the match. He's worked out a side that he's going to play the attack on, brought all the pieces over to that side, and then just launched the pawns and attacked like crazy. And it's been super fun to watch. So a very exciting match. Hans decides in return, while Anish is focused on this side of the board, he's going to create a little bit of play over on the queen side. On the opposite side, try and push his pawns over here. So he plays b4. And now b5 is played by Anish, offering this option if Hans wants to. He can trade over here, but after something like this is traded, then Hans has no longer any pawn breaks on this side, so he can't really break into the position so well. Oh, and this is what happens. Okay. Yeah, this is what actually happened on the board. Never mind. Okay, so now the rook comes over to c1, and the rook and the queen are working together down the c-file. So I think Hans has liked his idea here that he will attack down the c-file. And then we have a move from Anish, and bishop to d6 is played. So the bishop has moved from the e7 square. He maybe feels like it is better placed on this d6 square, where it's got a target on the h2 pawn, and you have this idea to push forward with h4 and try and create a big attack on this h2 pawn. So this could be the plan. Hello, everyone who's just coming in. Thank you, Nicola, for the 1,000 bits in Hans's Twitch chat. Thank you. All right. So rook to b3 is now played by Hans. He's trying to coordinate all his pieces on this c-file, and maybe also the queen will come over attacking this pawn. Okay, now rook to c7 is played. An interesting move by Anish. He moves his rook away from the h7 square over to the c-file. He decides to shift his pieces, not let Hans just completely create an attack over here, and instead start attacking and try and get a trade on the c-file. So the queen moves back to d1. Getting out of the way of this rook. And then what will Anish do here? You can plant your rook in the c4 square, which makes it really annoying for Hans because you can't really ever trade off, because then you give black a passed pawn. So you can't really ever trade off this rook. So maybe something like rook to c4 will be played. Maybe something else will be played. There might just be some more developing moves. Maybe this rook will find a new home at some point. Let's see what he decides on here. Maybe he's not currently going for the plan with h4, but maybe this will happen soon. He plays rook to c4. And yes, now this rook is in a really great position where this trade cannot be possible, and it's just really great over here. So let's see how Hans deals with this. He actually has not too much space in this position, which is always something that's really tricky to deal with, especially when there's not any easy trades to make. We have queen to d3 now. The queen comes up, and then queen c7 by Anish, doubling up here and creating the threat to take this rook. But there is an interesting move that can be played, which looks kind of crazy. You can actually take on a3. And the idea is that if the rook captures back, now your queen is going to defend this rook on c1. It's a very interesting way to play, but it is not played by Hans. Instead, he decides to move his rook away from this. So instead, he moves over to b1, not allowing this trade down on c1 and targeting the a3 pawn, working with this rook and the queen together, attacking a3. So maybe he will actually just win this pawn by force. I don't see any way as black that you can really defend this for too long. Maybe the queen could go to a7, but that feels like an awkward way. Okay, but he does play queen to a7. Defending. So queen a7 is on the board. Now what will Hans do? How can you attack this pawn now? I'm not seeing any other piece that you can bring to attack. But the good thing is now that this queen is on a7, it's not as strong as when it was on c7. It's not in as an attacking position. Hans decides to move his bishop back to f1, maybe trying to keep an eye on this diagonal here with the b5 pawn and the c4 rook, planning to move the pieces out of the way and create a target here. But Engine doesn't like it. We now have bishop to d7, defending this b5 pawn in the future, and also moving the bishop off the back rank. So now in future, this b5 pawn will already have a defender if Hans ever attempts to target it. The queen is moved away, and maybe the plan might just be at some point we want to move this knight out of this square on e2 and create an attack on this square on c4. All right, we have bishop e8. So the bishop is moved from c8, then to d7, and then all the way back to e8. Still keeping an eye on the b5 pawn. A lot of shuffling happening here, and here Hans does exactly what is expected. He moves this knight away and is just trying to attack this rook. But even then, I don't think you're actually threatening to take, because this pass pawn might actually be stronger than what the rook was. So maybe he's not threatening to take. For example, if we go here, and then if we take like this, after captures, I mean, both ways are fine. D takes, so I would probably go B takes. Both of these are fine. After you take, this pass pawn is going to be really strong. And also this rook is feeling like it does not have many squares. You maybe have to move it to the c3 square, but it's almost trapped. So let's see what happens here. I'm not sure if he's actually threatening to take, so Anish can sort of ignore this threat and play something else instead. So he does. He plays f4, which is now classed as a brilliant move because he is giving up this rook. But yes, Hans should not take here, and he doesn't. We have pawn takes, and then we have a trade of the pawns, and then Hans does actually just grab this rook on c4. He decides he just wants to take the material, and then now it's going to be very tricky. Anish takes with the d pawn, and now this pass pawn is really, really difficult to deal with. Let's see what he plays. Okay, he then moves his rook over to f3. I think this is an interesting idea, but it looks a little bit scary with this pawn, pass pawn, and also maybe at some point the threat of this bishop to come in and start attacking all these squares around the king. I would be really scared if I was in this position, or maybe even some idea like h4, and there could be the threat to bring this bishop out to h5 and attack the rook and the queen. They're on the same diagonal, so it would be really, really scary, I think. So let's see what is played. Something like h4 to prepare this is something that would terrify me. But let's see what Anish goes with. Okay, he's down to 10 minutes. Hans determined to finish with more time than when he started with. Yeah, he has got 16 minutes on the clock. I think he's just trying to play every move quite quickly. And it seems to be working for him in a lot of the games because he is just playing faster and then spotting some quick tactics where it matters and getting the win. So it's been nice so far, but now Anish is getting a few back. He's on a roll now, but unfortunately it's too late. And maybe part of the reason why Hans has relaxed a little bit is he's like, okay, I've won the match now. This is fine. That's all I needed to do. And now he can just relax and play as he likes. But of course, he still would want to win these games, I'm sure. So what will be the move for Anish? I'm sure there's a lot of things running through his mind right now, thinking about, okay, this must be some sort of way to attack all of these pieces on the light squares, maybe try and create an attack on the king with bringing the bishop over here at some point. How can I try and push my pass pawn as well? So there'll be a lot of things that you're thinking about in this position. Maybe you want to bring pieces to the c file at some point. He plays bishop to c6. Yes, this was something that I was also wondering about, whether he would just bring this bishop down this long diagonal trying to target the king. Then we have d5 by Hans, a pawn sacrifice, and then the bishop captures. So d5 is played, and the bishop captures. Let's see what happens here. So now the two bishops are on the same file, and I think this is the point of what playing d5 does. After the bishop takes, these two bishops are together on the same file, and then once this light square bishop moves, maybe Hans can just capture one of the bishops from the bishop pair and play with the opposite colored bishops maybe. Okay, here he plays bishop to c3, but apparently this is a big mistake. It's hard to see why though. But yes, if takes after the queen captures here, maybe Hans has a little bit more of a chance. He's traded off some of the pieces and the king is not so unsafe. But c3 is apparently a really big mistake. Bishop c3, big mistake. Okay. So the way you can punish this, there is a lot of ways to punish this actually for black. There are many, many ways to win. Some of the suggestions are to play queen to h7, trying to prepare pushes with h4 and attacking over on this side of the board. But there is also something like knight to g4, bringing the knight in. And this becomes very, very scary. All the pieces coming into the attack. The two bishops lined up, the knight over here. It's really difficult to defend. Anish does find this move, queen to h7, and the rook on b1 is under attack. Where do we put this knight? Oh wow, queen to h7 is a beautiful move, attacking this rook over here. And this knight can't go anywhere so that you can defend this. So what instead, if you play rook to a1, maybe you try and escape this by playing rook to a1, but this loses time for you, and now black has time to play queen to e4 and create a battery down this long diagonal here towards the king. And after the bishop takes over here, you can just capture. And after all these trades, black is going to have the two bishops and a passed pawn over here, and this looks very, very terrifying. All right, so what happens? So Hans decides he's just going to take this knight that's on f6. Now Anish can take this rook that's on b1. He can take the rook on b1 and be up 1 point of material. But instead, oh no, he does play rook to b1, and then Hans plays rook to c3. So now this knight is defended, and this rook is also out of attack. So you needed to find a square for this rook to go, and there was almost no squares to go. c3 is really the only square that you can land your rook on without losing anything. And now we have queen to e4 though, and there is just checkmate threats down here, and it's almost impossible to defend. You can play f3, but now after queen g6, Hans resigns. Wow, what a game. There was just too many threats in this position, and unfortunately, Hans has lost the second game in a row. So I mean, it would have. Now Hans is probably completely comfortable knowing he's already won the match, but it still feels a little bit scary having a couple of losses in a row. It feels very scary. There's just too many threats here. The bishop is under attack. There's threats to come and take down here. And these bishops just work way too well together to try and checkmate the king. So yes, this was a crazy game. We are going to have the final game starting very soon. We might have a short break before that, and then we will be back very, very soon before the final round. right, everybody, we have the final round now, and let me just flip the board. We have the final round. So we have another Berlin defense. We're getting this. Oh, but this one's a little bit different. Okay, so we are having a little bit of a difference from last one. I was about to just flick through the moves and assume we had the same game as just as we've had in the few last games, but we have d3 instead. Hans plays d6 and castles bishop to d7. Now this push with c4, g6 is played by Hans, knight to c3, and Hans brings his bishop out to g7, ready to castle over here with a fianchettoed bishop. So this one is a little bit different to the other games that we've had before, and we have the final round happening. Let's see if Hans can get a win just to finish off and to, you know, show that he's still going to be the winner by a fair margin. Maybe he's tired after all these games of chess. He's been playing a lot of chess in the past couple of weeks, so it's been super exciting to see it all, and probably exciting for both of them that it's coming to an end. To play so many games against the same person, I'm sure it's probably exhausting, but it's nice that Hans is making an effort to play some different openings, try some new ideas, and make the games very exciting. But Anish is already thinking, which we haven't seen in many of the games. Most of the games they've been playing almost instantly, blitzing out until move 14 or 15 because most of it's preparation or theory or just things that they know from general knowledge. But here, already on move 8, Anish is taking his time and thinking about this position. So I wonder what he's deciding between. In the previous games, he's decided to put a bishop on the e3 square. So it wouldn't be super out of the blue if that happened. But what might he be thinking instead? I wonder. Maybe something like h3 could happen. Oh, he plays knight to d5. Okay, this is what he was thinking about here. Maybe he was wondering, is this something he's played before? Is it a move? We have a trade. And this knight goes back to e7. So now Anish should probably just trade off these bishops. You could move back to c4 if you want, but it seems very strange to just put your bishop on the square where it's basically staring at a pawn. So I think we will see the bishops traded off. And we see the bishops traded. The queen comes up to d7 to take, and then Hans will likely castle on the next move. And Anish just needs to develop his final minor piece. This dark square bishop still hasn't moved anywhere. Maybe it goes to e3, maybe it goes to d2. I don't really see where else it might go. So let's see what he plays here. He plays queen to b3, putting pressure on the b7 pawn. So he decides to get this queen out. Now c6 is played. This is a nice move, just trying to trade off the pawns in the center and also making sure this queen defends the b7 pawn here. And here Anish already makes a mistake with bishop to g5. Bishop to g5 is already a problem. Now after takes and the bishops are traded, then this is apparently a problem for black. Apparently a problem for white, sorry, but I don't exactly see why. I think it is maybe just a small advantage in the fact that black is going to have the bishops and this pawn is going to be traded in the center. So he takes. He takes. Yes, maybe this will look very strange though. Having to capture back here. Actually, having to capture back here like this, it seems very strange. But maybe you can just take with the queen. Maybe with white you can just take with the queen here, and then it looks fine. Maybe Hans is just happy with this dark square bishop. But all right, let's see what actually happens on the board. We'll find out what exactly happens. We have king takes e7. Okay, king takes e7. Not something I would ever play, but you know what? I'm sure Hans has made the right decision here. That's crazy. The king comes up and it captures. Maybe he's decided there's enough pieces off the board that it's okay for the king to move out and capture over here. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's crazy. All right, not looking close enough. I'm not putting in the moves myself. They're just coming out physically. They're coming from the DGT board. So I'm just taking whatever is put on the DGT board. Okay, so we have queen takes d5, and then Hans plays queen to c6. And here there is offered the queen trade, but Anish does deny this and moves the queen back to b3. And then we have queen to b6. So Hans again is saying, how about we trade queens? Let's see what happens. Yeah, king a7, what a move. I mean, it's really not that dangerous in that position, but it definitely looks a little bit crazy, I guess. All right. So what is going to happen here? They could just repeat. The queen can go back to d5, and we could just see a repetition like this. But I don't know if that will happen. Maybe Anish wants to get a win in the final round. Maybe Hans is also looking for a win in the final round. So let's see. Will he play this move here? I think that first, if he is thinking about repeating moves, he will take a fair amount of time before deciding whether he does. So the fact he is thinking so long makes me think, is he deciding whether to repeat moves or to do something else? But maybe there is something else that is on his mind. Maybe instead he wants to bring a rook to the c file, play a simple move like h3. There are plenty of moves that you could decide between. But let's see whether he repeats or keeps the game going for an exciting final round. Now, I have received word that Hans will possibly be coming on for an interview at the end of this round. So if anybody is thinking about questions you want to ask Hans, then please have those prepared, have those ready, like try and make them good questions. So if anybody has any questions, then feel free to get those ready for when he is maybe coming on for an interview. But that will be in a little while from now after the round. So, all right. Let's see what happens right now. Anish using a fair bit of time. Still making his decision here about what to do. Okay, I'm going to see how they're looking on the cameras. Okay. He seems to be deep in thought. I'm not sure if we're going to see a move anytime soon. He's really, really thinking in this position. So it might be a while before we see a move from Anish. He's settled down, not holding the hand ready to make a move at all. Yeah, so any questions? Just keep those in mind for when he comes on later. Okay. Oh, we have a move. He plays queen to a3. He's not looking to repeat. He's looking to play. And this is what we like to see in a final round of a chess tournament. It's very easy to just repeat moves and say, okay, we'll just take a draw for the final one. But all right, he goes queen to a3, now queen a6. And Hans is still saying, let's just trade queens, still initiating that queen trade. And Anish can go back over here again, and then maybe it becomes a repetition, but instead he trades. He trades off the queens. So now Hans has some double pawns, but it's really not that much of a worry because he can just start bringing his rooks to the open files and start attacking over there. So the double pawns aren't really too much to worry about. So we will get an endgame here. There's still a lot to play for in this game. Neither player is just looking for the draw. Well, maybe Hans is looking for the draw, but Anish is not. He wants to play on this final round, despite his reputation of liking to have draws a lot. He's not looking for one in this one. All right. So it is now Anish's turn to make a move again. Let me just refresh the board so this is all coming through. All right, so you probably want to try and control the c files. Yep, so he brings a rook out here, and then Hans also brings his rook to the c file. So this is the only open file on the board that has absolutely no pawns on it. The b file is semi-open, but the rooks should really be on this open file here. So both are looking to try and control that. Anish decides to take this opportunity to reroute his knight. It can go up to the c4 square, where it will be very strong. So you can control this, but bishop h6 is on the board. Very nice. And now we have a trade. The rooks are traded off, and then knight c4 happens. King e6, they're playing super fast now. Both playing really, really fast. Hans, with 17 minutes on the clock, he is basically just playing all moves absolutely instantly, whereas Anish is using a bit more time because he's really thinking, okay, this is the final round. I want to make sure this is a good one for the last one. But Hans is like, okay, this is done now. I just want to finish the game and chill. All right, Anish starts to bring the king out. Now we have the pawn pushing forward. We have a trade of pawns. Maybe Hans will look to try and target this pawn that's on the d file. Anish plays king to e2. Now the kings are becoming active, but Hans definitely has the more active king. This king on d5. I mean, maybe it benefited him a lot earlier. Benefited him. I can't speak a lot earlier on to take with the king on e7 because now his king is super strong in the middle of the board here. So here we have f3. We have this move here, and now let's see what Hans goes for next. This knight is in a really great position though. Okay, he walks the king all the way up to d4. But yeah, I was trying to say this knight is in a really nice position because none of Hans's pawns can kick it away ever. So it'll forever be on this really strong square in the middle of the board. A very, very nice knight. But now Hans is going king first and launching the attack against the d3 pawn and basically trying to control as much of the board as he can using the bishop and the king and the rook. And yeah, it's just really nice for him right now. Anish needs to play on defense a little bit, which is going to be the harder way to play. So let's see whether Anish can defend this. I mean, there is really not a huge way to create a big attack, but as we've seen before in the previous games, things that looked like draws weren't always exactly draws. Yeah, this king on d4 is just super cool. It's super strong. And you can't really ever move this knight away because then the rook is infiltrating. You can't bring a rook to c1 because the bishop controls this square. And the king can never get more active by going to these squares either. So this bishop on h6 is really, really great and might cause some problems for Anish for the rest of the game. Hard to imagine either making progress here. Yeah, I think that here for Hans, he can sort of just shuffle the pieces around and he knows that he's not going to lose this because if the knight is ever moving, he brings in the rook. And, you know, while this rook would just be shuffling around, he can also shuffle around as well. Maybe he can start trying to push his pawns over on this side. There could be an idea of f5, e4, something like that, because you can never move this d3 pawn. It would leave the knight on c4 hanging. So maybe at some point he might try and start pushing forward with the pawns on f5 and e4, but he doesn't really need to. At the moment, it's fine to just play it as it is. Okay, Anish using more time. Now Hans has double Anish's time. So 8 minutes on the clock, whereas Hans has more time than he started off with 17 minutes. Didn't Hans win the match? Yes, Hans has already won the match, but they're just playing out the final game because they just are playing out what games are left. So yeah, I guess they signed up to play 6 rapid games today, so they're playing 6 rapid games today no matter the result. Yeah, 17 minutes. This is a huge amount of time. And yeah, Anish really churning through a lot of time. Playing for the love of the game, exactly. What type of tournament is this? This is just like a 1v1 match. It doesn't happen too often, really, where you just have, well, except for like world championship matches and stuff. But aside from that, there aren't too many 1v1 matches. So yeah, it's a little bit of a unique one. But they've been playing against each other for many, many, many games now. And now we're at the final one. All right, still more time being used here. And he finally plays a move. He pushes this pawn up to the a4 square. But apparently this is a mistake. Apparently this is a mistake. And Hans just immediately plays f5. He has no hesitation at all. And this is the plan. He wants to push e4. He wants to push this pawn to e4. Maybe he can even play rook b1 now. You know, the problem with a4 is that maybe after rook b8, sorry, not rook b1, rook b8, it can now infiltrate via this square up to b3. And then you can start attacking the pawn. You can get a super, super active rook. This knight is no longer stopping us from attacking down the b file. So yeah, we can get in here to this b3 square now. So let's see what is played. Let's see what Anish tries to do here. e4 is a threat. Rook b8 is a threat. There is a couple of threats that Anish needs to work out how he's going to defend them exactly. Let's see what works out. He wants to play a5. a5. Okay, let's see what is the problem here. After e4, you're running into trouble. Okay, maybe you're thinking rook a4, but it's too late for this now because the pawn has already gone here and it's ready to take up here. So it's too late to play anything like this. You're ready to capture and then just take up here after black moves. So lots of problems here with e4 coming on the next move potentially. All right, so what would be the option now? You can play this move b3, and this is to try and stop the rook from getting in by b8, because then you can just play the move rook to b1 over here, defending, and there's no more rook b3 and infiltrating like this. But this looks not so fun to play for white. Maybe it's the best way to defend, but it doesn't feel very nice. Anish decides to go for rook a3, defending the pawn with the rook here. Let's see. So there's options. He could go for this e4 plan or could go for the rook b8 plan. There's two plans that seem to be working quite... Oh my gosh. Sorry, my camera. Sorry. Okay. Just a moment. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I don't know if the camera is still working. I am sorry about that. I accidentally just yanked my camera down. Okay. It might be a little off now, but sorry about that. All right, let's continue with the game. And here, Hans plays rook to b8, the best move on the board. We're controlling this b file now. And what are we going to do? Bishop to f8 is now also a threat. What a move. Bringing the bishop back away from this h6 square, back here, targeting the rook. And then after this, the rook can then come up to the b3 square and target the pawn. So after we've kicked it away, of course, first, from defending on a3. Okay. So how will Anish defend? He only has 5 minutes on the clock. You need to do something about this threat here. But there is not a lot to do. Maybe try and play this move b3 now. But after bishop to f8, we're still having this problem. And now the b3 pawn is hanging. So this feels like not the best way to deal with it. Maybe you could try moving the rook. But if you move the rook, that's when the rook starts to come in. So if you play something like this to move away, then now we can play rook to b3, infiltrate like this. We can also push this e4 pawn. It's always an option to start pushing forward and threaten to capture on d3, or try and put pressure on this knight. So lots and lots of options for Hans here. Lots and lots of options for Hans here. And now Hans might be winning the final game as well as also winning the match overall. So this would be the nice cherry on top to also be winning the final game of the match, sorry, which is super exciting. But maybe also feeling quite disappointing for Anish. He finally got on a roll with a couple of wins in a row. But now, okay, he plays the move a5, pushing the pawn forward. But now Hans can play this move e4. He can push forward straight away. And then you have some problems here. If you're taking like this, Hans will just capture back. And again, you can't take here because of the knight on c4. And if you just ignore it, you play something like h4, then you can just take with check over here, and after the rook takes, the knight is going to be under attack. So big problems. I'll quickly show you what's happening. We do have this happening on the board, but instead Anish plays rook to a4. But here still e takes d3 is possible. We have check, the king takes, and then king to d5. What a move, stepping out of the way of any revealed checks over here. And now Hans has a pawn that's very close to promoting. The bishop is controlling all of the squares around the king. So there is a lot of ideas of checkmate threats, and also just the idea to maybe push this pawn all the way to the very end. So king d5, what a great move. What will Anish do? He plays king to e1, moving the king away. Now will the rook come in and give a check and infiltrate this way? Maybe this is what will happen. Hans was still 17 minutes left to go, so more time than he started, with Anish only on 4 minutes. This is a very exciting way to end the last game. Let's see, rook to e8 is played with the check, and then it comes in, the rook comes in, and g2 is under attack. All of the pawns are under attack here, and it is not looking good at all. And here, Anish resigns the final game, and Hans is the champion and also wins the final game, so that's awesome. All right, so as I said, yeah, that's a big finish to the match, and really, really nice endgame by Hans. It was a very classy endgame. So yes, remember Hans will be coming on for an interview. I think we will confirm this one. We will confirm this one for sure, but Hans will probably be coming on for an interview to talk to you guys about any of your questions that you have and also about his experience in the match. So feel free to save any questions that you have about the match for when he is coming on soon, and make sure you think of some of those if you have any. So we'll see you guys soon, and thank you so much for watching. can't see. Wait, I can't see what they're doing though. Okay, oh. Okay. So we are back. So they are still sitting at the board. Or why can I hear myself? Sorry. Okay, they're still sitting at the board. So we are just waiting for them to open up some presents, I think. I don't know what these are, but before he comes on for an interview, I think maybe people in chat would be interested to see what's happening in the tournament hall right now. So I guess I don't know what they're getting. Okay. I have to like go full screen to see what this is. Well, Anish looks very happy about it. I'm not sure what this is, but Anish looks very happy. Hans looks a little confused. Okay, what is this? Is this something we should know about? Oh, it's a large chess piece. Or is it a trophy? I think that looks too big to be a chess piece. Or maybe it's some sort of ornament or something like that. Okay. Yeah, that was a big prize fund for this tournament. It was big prize fund. I think it was 50K in total, which is crazy. All right. Now we see some shaking hands. A few people watching. Okay, they're heading out now, maybe? Maybe a replica of the, yeah, it's maybe something to do with where they are, some souvenir or something like that. Okay, everybody's leaving now. So this might mean that Hans will be coming on for the interview soon. All right, now I cannot see anything on the stream. Okay, now I do. All right, I think everyone is heading out, so hopefully we see Hans coming in soon for the interview here. I'm trying to look from all angles, like we see from one side where everyone is going. But yes, I think he's going to join a call soon, and then we will hear him. Because we've had some issues with the connection and with all the audio and stuff, we might just talk with audio. I don't know whether we'll have either of our cameras. Maybe we will see how it goes. Try and at least get him on the call and ask a few questions about what's happening. Is this your question for Hans? Did they just leave the wrapping paper? Yeah, you can make all your questions about the gift. I guess this can be added to one of the interview questions. But yes, please make sure that if you do have questions, that you do let me know. Yes, that's a good question. Ask you about the Paris games as well. That might be interesting to ask. I think he has a few upcoming tournaments as well. He is going to London soon. He has an event next week in London, so we might also ask about that and what he is doing for that one. I'm also thinking about asking him why he was playing so quick in this one. What did Hans have for breakfast today? Truly the hard-hitting questions that we're ready to answer. Is there more games? No, that was the final game. So I think they've now headed out, but Hans is still, I can still see Hans up in one of the cameras chatting with someone. I guess that there's probably some people that are wanting to talk to him. And then after that, he will probably be joining us for an interview. Oh, we have some codes for a website, 50% off codes. That's great. Which will be the next opponent of Hans against the world? Oh, that's a good question. Whether he'll make this a series. That could be very interesting. Whether this will be a series, Hans against the world. I mean, maybe he's going to travel everywhere. Okay. Current head-to-head score is on the website, I believe. If you go onto the events page, you'll be able to see it there. So in the rapid, it was 6-6. In the blitz, it was 4.5 to 7.5 in Hans's favor. And then in the classical, it was 6 to 9 in Hans's favor also. So, okay. Ask him what his favorite AFL team is. Yeah, I don't know if he will. I don't know if he'll even know what that is. Other opponents. Okay, okay. So, all right, I guess there are a few other matches coming up soon. All right, so there's a website here. Let's see. Okay, so, oh my gosh. In 3 days, he is playing a tournament in London. It's going to be 4 days. And then after that, on the 20th of August, he's playing in France. So he's playing a set of 3 tournaments. So yeah, I don't know how he does this, where he just plays back-to-back tournaments like this. It's absolutely crazy. Yes, thank you for watching, Lawrence. His jet lag must be wild. Yeah, I know. I can't imagine that, going and traveling to a different country and then having to play chess all day for a week or something like that. I imagine if you get sick, it would be a terrible experience. Are they all the same 5-day format? Oh yes, yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yes, this is I'll admit I hadn't looked at this before, but this is very exciting to see. You went from Melbourne to Perth. Yeah, even in the same country, it can be difficult with jet lag. Yeah, but I imagine with traveling so much and playing chess for so many hours each day, playing big matches like this, I'm sure it wouldn't be crazy if you got sick from that. But what a match. I think so the rest of his tournaments, Anish might have been his strongest. Anish might be the strongest opponent, right? So he has 2 more opponents to play, and I think Anish was given the slight favorite in this match, but Hans managed to win this one, so it's looking really good for the future ones. Yeah, it's looking really good for the rest of the ones. What's his favorite chess YouTuber? I mean, he might answer himself. Okay, so who are the other opponents? You can check it out here. This is where you can see everything. So you go to this page, and then it's showing you all the upcoming tournaments that are going to be happening. So he has 2 more opponents, but I think Anish must be the highest rated out of all of them. Like Anish is number 14 or something in the world. Can't find it. Yeah, maybe they set it up just a couple of days before. I guess that's a question. There's a question for Hans. Hi. No worries, Dismian. Yeah, I will ask him this. I will ask him this if he is getting on for the interview. Okay. But I don't know how long it will be. He seems to be in this conversation with these other 2 people. I don't know how long it would take. But I guess we will find out. Oh, okay. That might be it. Okay, he might be on his way. Yay! I mean, it's very nice of him that he's, like, sticking around and talking to the people. I imagine that a lot of chess players would just be like, "All right, I gotta get out of here after the tournament. I just have to leave and go," but he's sticking around after such a long match and talking with people and being friendly, which is nice. Yeah, no, I hadn't really heard of the other 2 opponents either. I'm not sure if it's just because I'm not too educated in some of the chess players, but yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Alright, so I assume he's gonna be calling from his phone. Well, I've never please make the camera big instead of yeah, so once Hans gets onto the call, we'll work out whether we can get a camera, going for him. And then if we can, if we can't get a camera going for him, then we'll just get the audio, but hopefully that will work. But yes, if they can do his camera instead of my camera, that would be good, I guess. Both his future opponents have been 2700 plus, but they're maybe like in 2600 level now. Okay, so still very, very, very strong opponents. So it's not going to be easy by any means, but yeah, Anish was at his current strength, the strongest out of the 3 players. Camera, yeah, at the camera, if the camera is here, it's going to be nice and big so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, Hans is joining now, we've heard. All right, great, great, great. We have Hans joining the call. And I will ask him any questions that are coming through. So we have him joining just about now, I think. All right. I'm waiting. Okay. We're still waiting, but he's going to be here very, very soon. Very, very soon. It's just going to be a little bit of a moment. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at stalling, but yeah, chat can still keep some questions coming through. I'll try and check what YouTube chat is saying too also. Okay. Someone wants to know about his fast play. All right. Yes, I'll try and ask for more questions. Yes, more questions. More. I need more questions. I don't know how many I'm going to be asking. I'll ask him like rapid fire questions. Should check. Oh, is it also streaming on Giri's channel? Oh, I haven't been reading that chat. Okay. Okay, let me also look in that one. Yes, I'll also check on Anish Giri's YouTube just so that we are getting questions from every chat. Okay. Let's see. I'm not noting down. I'm noting them down mentally. You just need to keep asking them just in case. All right. Yes, I see this. Oh, I hear myself, sorry. Okay, there we go. I have this chat also. All right. I'm now reading all the chats all at once. Okay. Could we get a niche interview as well? I mean, that would be nice, of course, but I guess that's up to him. We could get both players at once, maybe. Yeah. Wait, where is he? Oh, there he is. He's just sitting there, like chilling. I didn't notice he was still just sitting there. Okay. All right. What have we got from Giri's chat? Thank you for all the nice messages. Thank you for all the nice messages in Giri's chat. I'm sorry that I ignored you the entire stream. Okay. We have some questions in there too. Awesome. He's getting interviewed. He needs to get on for our interview. Go, Hans. He's got to get his priorities. Get onto Twitch chat. It's necessary. Yes, I mean, if we can get Hans's camera on instead of mine, then I'll remove mine. If that fixes the connectivity issues or anything like that, but we'll see. Yes, we have lots of people giving questions and noting down questions, so I will do my best to remember them and ask as many as I can. What are your thoughts about such decisive wins against such top players? I mean, it must feel nice, right? It must feel great. Rambo, yes, I am Australian. I'm from Australia. That is why I sound Australian. If his concert, yeah, lots of questions about the Magnus match. Lots of questions about that. We'll definitely ask ask a question about Paris. Of course, there is still a few matches to go until then. He's got the match in London and Paris, and then he is playing against Magnus in Paris also. So I suppose that maybe out of the matches, maybe the Speed Test Championship is the one he would be preparing the least for, because he's probably taking these FIDE rated events a lot more seriously, but we'll see. I'm from Melbourne in Australia. Was his strat for the clock during the game? So it seemed like he was just playing as quickly as possible, basically. But he might have just been super comfortable with how the positions were and stuff. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I received a full list of questions. That's great. Many, many questions. All right. He's apparently doing an interview right now. He's doing a quick interview, and then he will be on the stream with us. So it's apparently a very, very quick one. You're also from Australia? That's awesome. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's what he's doing over there. I guess that's who he's talking to over there. He's taking a quick interview. I mean, I'm sure that he's got many, many people that are wanting to get interviews. So we can wait and be patient, of course. Yeah, it's coming very soon. Yeah. Sometimes the quick interviews are not so quick, but I think this one is going to be a relatively quick one. Then maybe when it hops onto the call with us, maybe it won't be super quick. Brings in yeah, true. Brings in a lot of views. Opinion on FIDE, okay. I think there's only going to be a certain number of questions we'll be able to get through. So I'll try and find the ones that I feel are useful. But if people are sending them also in the chat, maybe he'll also be reading the chat. I know last time I interviewed him, sometimes he was reading questions from the chat and then just picking them up from there. Yeah, I mean, you can maybe, if you guys haven't had your questions asked by me, feel free to just send them also in the chat, and yeah, maybe he will respond them. Okay. Yeah. Hannah, what's your elo? I'm not as high rated as the other hosts by a long shot, but I'm doing my best. My FIDE is 1800 and my online rating is like 2200. So yes. I am not the best chess player, but I love chess and I really, really enjoy commentating chess and watching chess. So hopefully I can make up for what I have in not much elo in excitement for chess overall. But yes, I really hope someday that I can improve my rating a lot and then become a better chess player. Do you have any events coming up? I haven't exactly decided some yet. I know I'll be playing in there's a big tournament with Australia and some of the surrounding islands called the Oceania Zonal. So that's one I'm definitely gonna play in, but it's still some months away. So it's still quite a while away. Okay, I'm getting a message here. I'll see what it is. So yes, I was thinking of also maybe there's a tournament in Singapore at the same time as the World Championship, basically, and I was also thinking of playing in that one too. So yeah, I was thinking of playing that one, and yeah, then also an Oceania Zonal. Oh, Omnolinguist, they did actually ask me to play in that, but it was too late because I'd already organized another tournament at the time. Yeah. Yeah, but definitely, definitely, if I were to commentate for some of the stuff in future, it would be super great to go as like have a co-commentator that is maybe a bit stronger, so that I can just, you know, talk through things with them and ask them questions and that sort of thing. What else was there to say? Yes, thank you for all the nice positive comments. Falafel says, "Did Hans win or lose? He won. He won this tournament today." Um, have I played the Bretas? I've played Andrea, but I haven't played Alex yet. I played Andrea in a Blitz match a while back, but yeah, I haven't played Alexandra yet. Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you, no spicy. Are you taller than a kangaroo? Depends on the kangaroo. All right. What's my connection with Hans? Uh, I've never met him personally, but it was a while back. I commentated for him last year in September when he was playing the US Championship. So he was just asking of streamers that can maybe commentate for his stream. And I think somebody suggested me, and then his manager reached out to me and asked if I wanted to commentate. So that's how I know him, I guess. But no, I don't know him personally, and I've never met him in real life. But yeah. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I was thinking, oh, it's kind of recently, but it was actually a full year ago that I did commentary last time for Hans. But it's always fun. It's always very fun. Time zones match up. Yes, this time. Last time I was commentating for Hans, I started the rounds at 1 a.m. and then would finish commentating at like 6 a.m. And I was so, by the end of the round, I was so tired. I was drinking coffee at 2 in the morning, trying to stay up to commentate. This time it was actually a very nice time. It was only 7 p.m. in Australia when it started. So it's like, it's a lot more chill, which is good. Oh, well, being a manager would be stressful, I can imagine. Maybe it would be nice. Um, wait, what is this? Just checking all the chats, seeing what's going on. Oh, yes, it's winter in Australia, so that's good. Rails plenty hello from Anish Giri's chat. Welcome. I'm trying to read all of the chats. I'm doing my best. It's like on 3 screens at once. It's a lot. Okay. Oh, no, it's okay. I think we'll just wait until Hans comes on, hopefully soon. I think, yeah. I think, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, especially when you're winning a lot of stuff. When you're winning the tournament, everybody wants to talk to you. They want to make interviews and that sort of thing. If you lose the match, maybe you get out of there quickly because everyone wants to let you have your piece. But if you win the match, then everybody wants to chat with you, interview you, speak about this. So yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you for the raid on Twitch from Jack Sarkisian. Welcome, welcome. Hello. Shout out to, can I do this? Shout out to Jack. Oh, do we not have a command? What is first and second prize? So, okay. It was a $35,000 prize for first place, I believe, and 15,000 for the participating. Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't speak today, but okay. There we go. We have a shout out. Oh, okay. Here's coming. Yay! Hello. Welcome. Congratulations on the win.
Hi, thank you.
So, how are you feeling right now with the win today?
I'm really tired. I have like a headache. I feel super sick. Oh, on the board you have the. Let me know if you can see me. Can you see me now? Okay. Yeah, I feel very sick. Like I need to see. I have like a terrible headache, so I wanted to
no.
finish this as soon as possible. But very happy about winning the match with 3 games to go. Anish is a great player, and very happy to have defeated him over so many games.
Yeah, that was really nice. So you've been winning a lot of games recently, winning against MVL. Wesley So,
Yeah.
and also Anish now. How are you feeling after so many wins against such top players?
I feel great. Um, I hope it continues. We've got two more matches in the series, so I'm very optimistic for the future as always. But it's nice when the results come,
Hmm.
because sometimes you train and you work for a long period, and the results don't come. But sometimes they just all come one after the other. So this has been a very good 2 weeks, or even
Hmm.
string of tournaments. So I'm very very pleased.
Yeah, that's super nice. So you said you're feeling a little bit sick after this. How are you feeling about having the London match in just a few days from now? Do you think you're
A day to
prepared?
recover is enough. I'm used to this intense schedule, and I just need a day. Need to go for a little bike ride in London, and I'll be refreshed.
Okay, that's great. So you just need a day and then you're fine again. So what are the things that you're going to do to prepare for the next match, or have you already got that all
I will
done?
just sleep. I'll just sleep and enjoy my favorite city. And I'm sure that the chess pieces will guide me for the rest.
Amazing. So how are you planning on spending the rest of the time in the Netherlands?
I will just maybe have another kebab. It's quite good here, and then I will just I don't know, sleep, pack.
Okay, nice. And somebody asks if you would consider moving to the Netherlands as well.
I don't know. I kind of like London, but I do. It's nice to be back in Utrecht. Um,
Mhm.
it's a bit nostalgic, so I like it. But I don't think I would live in the Netherlands, unfortunately. I need a
Okay.
bit more action,
Okay.
bit more vibrant. It's
You
vibrant.
like the bigger
I,
city,
yeah,
like,
I
you
like
know?
I like to live in like a very big city.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair enough. Okay,
mhm.
so how do you feel like you got all the stamina to play multiple matches in one day, like against Anish and Wesley in same day? How did you work on building up your stamina for that?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's a choice. I think either you play and you win, or you lose. And when things need to be done, I think the energy just is always there. So you have to just. I think if you think you're tired, you're going to be tired. If you
Mhm.
if you don't think you're tired and you just ignore it, you won't be tired. So I think it's sort of psychological and about perspective.
Okay, if only I could do that. um, but also, people were asking about your match in Paris with Magnus. How are you feeling about that one, or is that just too far away out of your mind?
I think I'll finish the two matches, and then I'll think about that. I don't know. I'm playing. I feel like really confident because I beat like Wesley and Wesley sort of more convincingly than MBL. But I feel quite good. Uh, just at least I'll have like 10 days to rest, so that'll be really important. So I'm glad that I had a match against Nihal scheduled.
Mhm.
So that actually canceled for other reasons, but I'm glad that it was canceled, so I have more time to rest. So I'm sure that I'll be ready for
Okay.
that. And
Yeah, it's
it's
probably
nice that it's in
nice to clear
Paris.
up your schedule.
It's nice
Yeah.
that it's in Paris, so I don't have to travel much. So it's convenient location.
Okay, nice. And talking about the match itself, we noticed that pretty much in all of the games you had basically more time than when you started with. You're playing everything instantly. Why was that? What was the reasoning behind the time management?
I just have a really bad headache, so I wanted to leave. So I wanted to get
Okay.
over it as quickly as possible. So yeah, that was my strategy. Just to trust my
Well, it seemed
intuition.
out. Yeah, it seemed to work out well for you. Okay, that's nice. Okay, I'll see if there's any more questions from chat also. Um, okay, sorry, I'm looking at chat.
No worries.
They had a lot of questions, but I'm looking through them right now. Um,
Someone says, "What's my freestyle swimming record?" So in the 50 free, my time was I think around 28 seconds. It wasn't that bad. We were the state champions 13 years in a row. But I'm better at water polo. I used to play in the Netherlands actually.
Okay, nice. How can we support Hans?
Sorry?
How can we so somebody asked,
You
how
guys
can we
should go to
support you?
gmhuns.com, and go to the YouTube and social media channels. But gmhuns.com, you should check it out. There's free content to watch.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, yeah.
People are asking if you will train with Kramnik. Is this something you were wanting to do?
Kramnik's a great player, so any opportunity to learn from him would be an honor.
Okay, nice.
How come London and Paris tickets are 50? Well, yeah, the tickets in London, I might make them free. We'll see. We'll see. I'm feeling quite democratic, so I might make the tickets free in London and Paris. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, yes. Did you feel confident going into the final match today with the
Yeah, I had
rapid
a pretty
match?
big margin, like a 3-game margin. I felt like I had really pretty good chances. So
So
I
you're
wasn't too
basically
worried about it.
thinking like, yeah,
Yeah, I
as
thought
long
it
as you
was.
get a couple of wins, it's
Yeah, I
fine.
thought it was like a 90% chance after with a 6-point lead. But
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it was a super convincing match, and we were all so excited to watch you win so many games and play super well. Even though you said you weren't at your best today, you still played super amazingly. If you want to answer any more questions from the chat, you're welcome to, but we can
would I
also let
accept a
you go
rematch?
rest.
Well, I think that the main purpose is I'm going to continue going up the rating list. So I'm playing these 2 matches against Vitugov and Bukro, who are very strong players, but not like top players. But after that, I continue just to challenge the highest rated player that will accept my challenge. So that's what I plan on doing.
Who would be your like dream opponent to have for one of these matches?
Well, I think anyone who has a high rating and anyone who's the best player in the world. So I'll just play against everyone. Anyone in the top 10, and I think I can beat them in this format. Okay, Anish, his rating dropped quite a bit, but I think he was number 5 in the world like earlier this year. So he's a very good player. Okay, we'll take one more question. Let's see. Do you think I'm ready for a world title classical? I probably need a bit more time, but Rapid and Blitz, I think I'm ready. Blitz
Okay,
especially.
nice.
Because Rapid is just such a bore fest. But Blitz, I'm ready to be world champion, I think. I just need some to be in good form.
Nice. Well, we will let you get some rest if you like, and good luck for the rest
Yeah,
of
wait,
your
someone says, do you
matches.
like watching the recap? Well, the thing that makes me so sad about when I win is that I don't get to watch Hikaru's recaps. Because he only makes the videos when I lose. And I enjoy his recaps so much. I like fall asleep listening to them. So I just wish that he would analyze my wins so I could sort of watch his recaps. So I have this sort of dilemma every day whether to win or lose, and sometimes I had to lose at least one game just so I could have the honor of listening to one of his recaps. So okay, well, thank you for doing commentary, and thank you to the viewers, and I will take some much needed rest, but back in London. And
All
if you
right.
guys are in the area, you should come. If you, yeah, it's like central London, so it'll be a nice. It's the same venue as the London Chess Classic, actually. So
Okay, well, good luck. Thank you so much.
yes,
And
thank you.
pleasure to commentate,
Yes,
and
okay,
have a wonderful day.
sure, bye.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody who has been supporting and watching in the streams. If you don't know me, my name is Hannah, and yep, thank you so much, everybody, for watching from YouTube and from Twitch, and also from Anish's chat, of course, as well. It was a super exciting match, and it was honestly an honor to commentate today. I had so much fun. So Have a great day, everybody. And yes, that is also my channel if you want to check that out. And we'll see you guys for some future commentary, I guess. All right, bye.